Chapter 458. Under countless gazes, in the distant battlefield, an enormous Taiji diagram rose and fell. Grand mist energy and all life source energy interweaved, each occupying half. The eye of the formation was Xiao Hei's power wrapped in primal chaos. At this moment, Chu Bei floated above the primal chaos. With a wave of his arms, Xiao Hei's power poured into the grand mist energy. Wong wong wong. In that instant, the battlefield rumbled. The enormous Tai Chi diagram beneath Chu Bei's feet seemed as if it had come to life. Various profound talisman markings flickered above it while a myriad of phenomena appeared, and it was extremely gorgeous. Countless stars in the outer realm trembled as if they were resonating with it. Hurry and look. That's the energy Senior obtained from the coffin on Fiend Island's immortal tomb. Tao Dai King, Old Celestial, and the other experts looked at Chu Bei, revealing shock when they recognized the grand mist energy. A portion of Great Ancestor's aura comes from the same source as Father's all-life source energy cauldron. Yi Qingxian's eyes landed on the other half of the Taiji diagram's all-life source energy, muttering to herself, "Ah!" Jean Taijun screamed miserably. She was grabbed by the neck by the iron lump that Chu Bei summoned, her primordial spirit being torn apart bit by the latter's chaotic power. The other party didn't directly kill her, instead torturing her to death bit by bit. "Brother Wang, Brother Zhao, save me." Jean Taijuan's aura became increasingly weak. Her primordial spirit floated before the space between her brows, trembling. There were actually a few cracks, like porcelain that would shatter at any time. She wanted to run, but Iron Lump's large hand carried a terrifying, mysterious power, forcefully suppressing her divine force. No matter how she struggled, it was all to no avail. "Daofren Chu, don't blame us for being impolite." When he heard Jean Taijuan's cry for help, Immortal Wang gripped the halberd in front of him. In the next moment, the halberd released a purple beam of light, piercing through the heavens, piercing through the great stars in outer space, blooming like fireworks. At the same time, the Ten Realms diagram in front of Zhao Haoyan released walla sounds, trembling, the surrounding void immediately collapsing. The sound of sacrifice rang out from within. It was clear, grand, and intimidating. At this moment, Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan's auras rose to the peak. With immortal artifacts in hand, they attacked Chu Bei from both sides. Although the two of you didn't participate in what happened back then, you also turned a blind eye to it. Today, you even protected Jin Yin like this. You can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment. Chu Bei's voice was calm. After giving Immortal Wang Tu a look, his green robes fluttered about. When Chu Bei's indifferent voice filled with supreme majesty fell, the Taiji diagram under his feet suddenly released a strange light. Then, the primordial qi and myriad qi, which carried Xiao Hei's power, rose at the same time and wrapped around him. Chu Bei stepped forward. Everywhere he passed, runes lit up on the battlefield, interweaving in the void and covering the sky. Immortal Wang's hands held the Xianyuan war halberd, thrusting outwards. Terrifying offensive energy turned into densely packed lines, as if they were golden sword edges, surrounding Chu Bei. Under this strike, even Imperial Pass cultivators who were separated by many great regions couldn't help but feel their minds sink, feeling as if they were going to suffocate. Zhao Haoyan spread out the Ten Realms diagram. Hundreds to over 1,000 different types of radiance surged from within, surrounding the battlefield. These radiances shot in all directions. Even if a self-release realm expert made contact with these radiances, their flesh and primordial spirits might immediately explode. Two great immortal artifacts, under the control of two peak supreme beings, released terrifying attacks that could destroy the heavens one after another. However, when this type of terrifying heavenly might was about to engulf Chu Bei, the myriad qi and primordial qi surrounding the latter's body erupted. The former turned into a longbow, blue-green radiance moving about the bow. One could vaguely see the scene of endless people bowing down in worship. The latter turned into a black arrow, the arrow covered in primal chaos, the strange aura making one tremble inwardly. Kong. Chu Bei held the bow in one hand, an arrow in the other. The arrow flew out, shattering the heavens. Xianyuan war halberd's endless golden sword blades formed from offensive energy were instantly torn apart by the arrow's terrifying power. The mountain and river radiance outside the Ten Realms diagram also instantly collapsed. Dang! A metallic noise sounded. The sharp arrow continued forward, continuously smashing into Xianyuan War Halberd and the Ten Realms diagram, directly blasting the two out of Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan's control. How is this possible? The immortal artifacts left their hands. Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan's pupils suddenly contracted. However, before they could summon their immortal artifacts back, that arrow split into two, and then transformed again, splitting into two giant palms, grabbing their necks. In that instant, the divine force within their bodies was restricted, formless and terrifying primal chaos power engulfing every single cell. Their entire bodies felt as if they fell into an ice house. This type of feeling was as long as they dared struggle, the wave of primal chaos power that spread through their bodies would tear apart their flesh and primordial spirits, forever preventing them from reincarnating. Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan exchanged a look, shivering inwardly, not daring to move at all. Then, they looked at Chu Bei with faces full of horror, their eyes full of restraining fear. Impossible! Why is it like this? Seeing that Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan had suffered the same fate as her, Jin Taijuan's face became even paler, and the fear on her face became even more intense. Two supreme beings with immortal artifacts attacked together, yet they still couldn't do anything to this unknown Boss Chu. Who else could save her now? Who could stop this Boss Chu? She knew that the situation was hopeless, but under the palm of this iron lump that was currently controlling her, she didn't even have the chance to burn her origin and self-destruct her primordial spirit. All of her divine force was restricted, and she couldn't move at all. Thud, thud, thud. Chu Bei gave Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan an indifferent glance. Then, he turned around, and his gaze landed on Jin Taijun. He walked towards him, and with every step he took, the heavens would explode with a loud bang, as if resonating with him. Let me go. The matter's back then. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have twisted the truth for my own selfish desires, and even more so shouldn't have made things difficult for the descendants of these heroes. I am still useful. I can still kill enemies in Desolate Border. While looking at Chu Bei, who was getting closer and closer, Jian Taijuan's body began to tremble. She no longer had her high and mighty attitude, continuously begging for forgiveness. Desolate Border, with or without you, it's the same. If you really are useful, then this great one will replace your position. Chu Bei's expression was indifferent, his ice-cold voice spreading from the battlefield, spreading through Imperial Pass, spreading through the 9 heavens 10 earths. Hong. The iron lump returned to Chu Bei's body, and at the same time, a fist smashed out. This fist had the support of Grand Mist energy and all life source energy, chaotic force overflowing in all directions, exceptional and unmatched. Radiance overflowed, blasting this battlefield until it exploded. The fist imprint's power was unmatched. Peng. The unmatched supreme being Jin Taijun was blasted apart by Chu Bei's fist, her body directly exploding, turning into a bloody mist. Her primordial spirit didn't even have time to escape, completely crushed by the fist force, not a single primordial spirit fragment escaping. The bloody mist scattered, the Taiji diagram returning to Chu Bei's body. The battlefield gradually became quiet. What also became quiet were all of the cultivators in Imperial Pass. In that instant, the entire 9 heavens 10 earths became deathly still. On the battlefield, everything became quiet. Wang family's Xianyuan War Halberd, Zhao family's 10 realms diagram. These two great immortal artifacts each floated in the void, quietly rising and falling, releasing hazy radiance. Meng Tianzheng held the immortal king corpse wrapping cloth in his hands, looking at Chu Bei's rear figure in shock, entering a state of silence. When he looked at Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan, these two great peak supreme beings, they still had their necks grabbed by two giant hands, stupefied as they stared forward, not moving at all, their eyes carrying a bit of alarm. This great one has already said that the two of you can be spared from death, but you cannot escape punishment. Finally, Chu Bei's calm yet dignified voice broke the battlefield's deathly stillness. Then, His sleeves lightly moved. Before Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan recovered from their fear, those two giant hands suddenly clenched, stars filling the sky appearing in the palms. Pong! Uniform explosions sounded on the battlefield, ringing through the 9 heavens 10 earths. Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan's bodies exploded at the same time, turning into a resplendent rain of light. Fortunately, their primordial spirits were still there, but they were swaying, their auras in disorder, clearly also seriously injured. This can be considered a small punishment this Great One is giving you too. Chu Bei's calm voice sounded again. With a wave of his hand, the Xinyuan War Halberd and 10 Realms diagram were tossed over to Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan. Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan's primordial spirits gave each other a look. They didn't say anything, directly leaving the battlefield with their own immortal artifacts, disappearing into the horizon. At the same time, above Jin family's cave, Zhao family and Wang family's early-stage supreme beings who arrived first gave each other a look, and then their figures all disappeared. On the battlefield, after the two giant hands turned back into the primordial energy, returning to Chu Bei's body, the battlefield entered a state of silence again. Daofriend Chu Bei, how do you plan to deal with this Jin family? Meng Tianjing put away the immortal king corpse wrapping cloth, and then with a step, he appeared at Chu Bei's side. Chu Bei revealed a calm smile. With a raise of his hand, a ripple was released from the battlefield, landing in Jin family's cave's core region. A sky-shocking rumbling noise sounded, rubble flying everywhere, the sky flickering with brilliance. Not long after, the Jin family's cave residence, which was originally like a fairyland, turned into a stretch of ruins. It's over. Everything is over. Jin Taijun is dead. From now on, Imperial Pass no longer has a long-life family like Jin family. Too terrifying. Even Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan, who had immortal artifacts, were actually not this Boss Chu's opponent, to the extent where their bodies were even directly blasted apart. If not for Boss Chu being lenient, their fates might have been the same as Jin Taijuan's. After the deathly silence, what replaced it was deafening noise. Most of the cultivators in Imperial Pass watched this world-shaking great battle from start to finish, all of them looking at the figure in the battlefield, their eyes carrying respect, full of worship. It wasn't just Imperial Pass. This scene was projected to every corner of the 9 heavens 10 earths by Chu Bei. Compared to the cultivators in Imperial Pass, the cultivators of the 9 heavens 10 earths were even more confused. Of course, there was no lack of great shock. Who exactly are they? Where's that battlefield? Also, that giant city, its surface area might be larger than one of our provinces, right? Judging from their down names, the one who won is called Boss Chu. Just what kind of cultivation does that person have? Is the truth of sinner's blood really like what he said? The cultivators of the 9 heavens 10 earths were at a loss, but even more so confused. 3,000 Dao provinces, Sin province. Our ancestors didn't sin. They weren't sinners, but rather heroes of the 9 heavens 10 earths. Correct. They used their lives to protect the 9 heavens 10 earths. The imprints on our foreheads aren't sinners' blood symbols, but rather symbols of glory. Even though I don't know what kind of background this Boss Chu has, it really is all thanks to him. Otherwise, this truth might never be revealed. He is our benefactor, the benefactor of all of Sin province. Sin province, tens of millions of cultivators raised their heads, looking at the figure in the sky dome image. While cheering, they bowed down in worship, the resplendent Sin character imprint shining between their brows. Lower realm, Stone Country. Was the one senior killed a peak supreme being? Who would have thought that not only was senior unmatched in the lower realm, he is still the same in the higher realm? When I break through, I will definitely head up and explore the scenery there as well. Inside the Imperial Palace, Stone Emperor, Ghost King, Thousand Happiness, the old giants, Shi Zhongtian, and the others gathered together, all of them looking at the sky dome in shock, not even blinking. Gradually, the scene in the 9 heavens 10 earths sky dome began to disappear. Chu Bei also returned from the battlefield to Shihao, Yi Qingxian, and the other side. Truly a terrifying fella. Chao Yuxing sneaked a look at Chu Bei, who returned to his side, unable to help but swallow his saliva. This person was millions of times more terrifying than his master. Chapter 459. Master, Great Ancestor. Sure, Hao and Yi Qingxian cried out at the same time. Chu Bei nodded, indicating his response. Benefactor, many thanks for your respected self's redress. Stone Clan's people knelt down towards Chu Bei one after another, their eyes carrying deep gratitude. All of you can rise. You all are the descendants of heroes. During these tens of thousands of years, the 9 heavens 10 earths truly owe you all too much. Chu Bei raised his hand, producing a ripple, supporting Stone Clan's people, releasing a deep sigh, deeply moved. Devil leader King stared at Chu Bei in a daze, as if he lost his soul. Just what kind of unmatched existence did he bring back? Tao Dai King, Old Celestial, and other experts looked at each other in dismay. They never would have thought that the first thing Boss Chu did after entering Imperial Pass was kill one of Imperial Pass' 4 great unmatched supreme beings, Jin Taijun, and wipe out the entire Jin family. Moreover, he even blasted apart the flesh of the other 2 unmatched supreme beings, Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan. This was just too shocking. The truth of the sinner's blood is clear. They aren't the descendants of sinners, but rather the descendants of heroes. From today onwards, if anyone tries to target them, they will be killed without mercy. Several seconds later, Chu Bei's calm voice echoed through Imperial Pass, transmitting to the 9 heavens 10 earths, continuing for a long time. It carried a might that couldn't be resisted, directly shaking everyone's hearts. Daofren Chu, I wonder how much longer you will remain in Imperial Pass? Meng Tianzheng spoke up, asking in a probing manner. Mission 6, Host quells the chaos of Desolate Border. During the mission, Host possesses level 18 Xiao Hei strength, can also use level 19 goods once. Right when Chu Bei was about to reply to Meng Tianzheng, the system's voice sounded in his sea of consciousness. Chu Bei stared blankly for a moment. He turned around, saying to Meng Tianzheng, Jian Yin was killed by this Great One. Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan were seriously injured by this Great One. So this Great One naturally won't leave. This Great One will stay behind until Desolate Border's situation stabilizes. Of course, Chu Bei's words also gave Meng Tianzheng a bit of assurance. With Daofren Chu's words, it is great. Upon hearing Chu Bei's words, Meng Tianzheng laughed. This Boss Chu was far more powerful than Jin Taijun. Great. Great Elder, the Desolate Border is in danger. They are coming. Please, please go. Right at this time, a long rainbow instantly arrived from the distant horizon. This was a powerful cultivator at the peak of the self-severing realm, already half a foot into the self-release realm. However, at this moment, his entire body was covered in wounds. The wounds that were difficult to heal were a ghastly sight. A terrifying energy was nibbling away at his life force. Bang! Before he could reach Meng Tianzheng, he had just finished speaking when his body suddenly exploded, turning into a bloody mist that scattered across the void. Did something happen in Desolate Border again? Meng Tianzheng's brows furrowed tightly, immediately afterwards looking towards Chu Bei. Let's go. Meeting Meng Tianzheng's gaze, Chu Bei said calmly. The so-called Desolate Border was located in the southernmost part of Imperial Pass City. It was a boundless battlefield. Look, Senior Meng is here. This is too great. On Imperial Pass City walls, a soldier cried out in alarm. In his line of sight, several divine rainbows flashed past, several hundred people in total. Woo! On the city walls, the horn sounds became louder and louder. Countless soldiers' expressions were serious, dressed in armor, weapons in hand, waiting in formation. On the other side of the city walls, shouts of war shook the heavens, endless dazzling brilliance flickering about. Why is it only Meng Tianzheng? Where are Immortal Wang, Zhao Haoyan, and Jin Taijun? Could it be that the fella who went back to report didn't say that the situation was urgent? 2 early-stage supreme beings stood on the city walls, their brows carrying serious expressions. Previously, Chu Bei had also tried to project the scene of his battle with Jin Taijun onto Desolate Border, but there was a mysterious power that stopped it. As a result, the cultivators guarding Desolate Border didn't know about Jin Taijun's death. Those fellas are all so unfamiliar. They should all have just been recruited from the 9 heavens, 10 earths. Who is that person? He is actually walking side by side with Senior Ming. Moreover, from the looks of it, Senior Ming seems to be quite polite towards him. The soldiers standing guard looked at Chu Bei's group with endless shock, their eyes carrying a bit of confusion. Brother Ming, why did you come alone? Where are Jin Taijun, Brother Wang, and Brother Zhao? As soon as Ming Tianzheng landed on the city wall, a supreme being walked up to ask. Jin Taijun is already dead. Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan's bodies are in tatters. They can't come. Meng Tianzheng said indifferently. What? What is going on? There are still people in Imperial Pass who can injure them? When they heard Meng Tianzheng's words, the two supreme beings revealed stunned expressions, their faces full of disbelief. This matter is a long story. You all will naturally understand when you have the time. As for our side's strength, you all don't need to worry either. We have Daofren Chu joining us. Meng Tianzheng gave Chu Bei beside him a look, saying this. Daofren Chu? The two supreme beings exchanged a look, their eyes carrying confusion and confusion. They had lived for hundreds of thousands of years, yet they had never heard of this type of existence. So this is Desolate Border? This was the first time they saw Desolate Border's Tao Dai King, Clan Chief Jin Wan, Immortal Palace's Palace Master, Old Celestial, and the other cultivators. They stared blankly at the other side of the city wall, inwardly incomparably shaken. That was a boundless great desert, vast and boundless, as if there was no end to it. In the depths of the great desert, there was a star domain that rested in the heavens, as if it was a streak of heavenly punishment. Tao Dai King, Old Celestial, and all of the other cultivators were shocked. They raised their heads towards that star domain. It was like demonic clouds, but also like immortal mist, pure white and darkness intertwining, as if yin and yang were embracing each other. The most crucial thing was that it formed a giant circle, turning into a terrifying vortex, forming an abyss. Only, this abyss led into the heavens, entering the boundless unknown, and not into the underground. It really was too large, boundless, surrounding the great desert. Could that be Desolate Border's heaven abyss? A self-severing realm cultivator muttered to himself. Tao Dai King and the other experts were stunned. Along the way, they had heard Devil Leader King say that there was this type of abyss, only it didn't lead into the depths of the great earth, but rather into outer space, extremely mysterious. This was formed from spatial walls, a mysterious domain of its own. Black and white, two colored mists intertwined, interweaving together, slowly swirling about, possessing terrifying power. In Heaven Abyss, there were many star fragments, rising and falling. As they swirled about, they formed a wave of demonic power, the scene grand. This wasn't a normal abyss, even stars able to be swallowed up. However, it wasn't a black hole, really just an abyss. It was because as they walked forward in the great desert, they could see that Heaven Abyss was about to touch the ground. This way, they could see even more clearly. There were many star remains inside, slowly moving about. There were even some giant skeletal remains that floated about, spinning about, making one's heart tremble inwardly. As if sensing Tao Dai King and the others' confusion, Devil Leader King said, "This Heaven Abyss divides Desolate Border into two halves. The other side belongs to the other side. It is mysterious and unknown. Our side previously had many experts move along Heaven Abyss, but no one has ever reached the end." Didn't they say that this Heaven Abyss is helping our side defend Imperial Pass? Then how is it protecting Imperial Pass? Countless cultivators were confused. They looked into the distant Heaven Abyss, unable to sense any special power. Our side's greatest fighting strength is Senior Ming, Immortal Wang, these peak supreme beings. But the other side has undying existences, their fighting strength equivalent to our side's true immortals from endless years ago. In this type of situation, once the other side's undying existences come, they might be able to rewrite Desolate Border's battle situation with a single finger. It is precisely this Heaven Abyss that guarantees the stalemate. Even though it is ineffective against normal cultivators, once the other side's undying existences wish to cross realms, this Heaven Abyss will release unmatched power, suck those undying existences into the abyss, thus disappearing without a trace. Devil Leader King said with a serious expression. Even immortals can be swallowed? After hearing Devil Leader King's explanation, countless cultivators turned pale with fright. When they looked towards Heaven Abyss again, their eyes revealed great reverence. Hong Long Long. Right now, the two great armies were currently fighting in Heaven Abyss, densely packed, carrying boundless auras as they tore at each other. As far as the eye could see, it was a black expanse like a sea, killing intent overflowing into the heavens. Kill. Defend desolate border. Kill all of these invading enemies. Even from the distant city top, the soldiers could still hear the sonorous war songs from the battlefield, as well as iron-blooded shouts of war. Heaven Abyss immediately became the most intense battlefield, all types of tyrannical auras pervading the air. The true self-realm cultivators who were revered by the outside world, in this desolate borders battle, served as cannon fodder. In the outside world, the self-release realm's supreme existence who became the overlord of an area was nothing more than a general on the battlefield. A single careless move, and there would similarly be the risk of death. Dao Friend Chu, I am leaving first. Meng Tianzhang gave Heaven Abyss battlefield a look, and then he cupped his fists towards Chu Bei, and then left. When they saw this, the two initial stage supreme beings who were originally guarding the city top followed behind Meng Tianzhang, also entering Heaven Abyss battlefield. On the battlefield, the other side had 5 supreme beings working together to kill the 9 heavens 10 earths 3 supreme beings. The battle incomparably intense. Brother Ming, you finally came. With Meng Tianjing's addition, the originally one-sided battle situation immediately reversed. As soon as Meng Tianjing entered, he directly used the Immortal King corpse wrapping cloth. Even though there were all types of filthy blood traces on its surface, the passage of time also leaving behind too many imprints, this didn't stop it from being an immortal artifact, or even an Immortal King precious artifact. Under Meng Tianjing's control, the corpse wrapping cloth swayed in Heaven Abyss. One could vaguely hear endless shouts of war from within, making one feel incomparably excited. Walala! In Heaven Abyss battlefield, the Immortal King corpse wrapping cloth danced about. In just a few seconds, it forced back the other side's 5 great supreme beings. It's this damned banner again. Only, it is a pity that this time, even if you all have it in your hands, you still can't stop us from breaking through. A foreign supreme being roared with laughter. Chapter 460. My king has already awakened. Not even Heaven Abyss can stop him. On the battlefield, that foreign supreme being's eyes locked onto Meng Tianjing, roaring with laughter. It had a human's torso, legs, and arms, but its head was a silver snake head. At the end of its spine was a thick snake tail. Apart from this, there was also a pair of silver-white Yaksha wings. Snake Yaksha, a foreign king race, exceptionally ferocious. After the snake Yaksha's powerful voice sounded, it immediately put on a pious expression. Immediately afterwards, the void in front of its body rumbled. Zhang. Accompanied by a metallic sound, as if a dragon roar or tiger roar, a golden spear appeared from the void, releasing dazzling immortal light. Its voice was cold, making one's soul tremble. The spear was 9 feet in length, full of sharpness, immortal light dazzling. This was a terrifying weapon that left one with a deep impression with a single look. It carried immortal energy, swirling with immortal splendor, clearly an unmatched immortal weapon. However, it also carried a wave of killing intent that went against the auspiciousness of the immortal Tao, spreading outwards, turning into a divine killing weapon. Irregular scenes of mountains and rivers appeared around the spear edge, great stars swirling about. It quietly rested in the void just like that, yet there was a wave of terrifying aura that pervaded the air, as if it was going to suppress the world. Die! The foreign supreme being released a cold shout. Immediately afterwards, this spear pierced through the heavens with a so sound, directly seeking out the Immortal King corpse wrapping cloth. Almost at the same time, the Immortal King corpse wrapping cloth released resplendent radiance. One could vaguely hear the sound of pity it released. When facing that spear, it was as if it found an enemy. Honglong. When the two clashed, they directly found another battlefield in Heaven Abyss, both sides fighting fiercely. Terrifying power pervaded the air. If not for Heaven Abyss' mysterious power suppressing them, Huang might have already been blasted apart. Meng Tianzheng, without the war banner, how are you going to stop us? The foreign supreme being coldly stared at Meng Tianzheng, releasing a cold snort. Then, symbols flickered in the surroundings, attacking Meng Tianzheng together with the other two supreme beings. Meng Tianzheng gave the immortal king corpse wrapping cloth a look, his brows furrowing slightly. His fists opened and closed, containing the unmatched Great Tao, facing the three foreign supreme beings. Master, they are all so strong. Sure Hao pulled Chu Bei with one hand, his other hand pointing at the desolate border battlefield, swallowing his saliva. Chu Bei nodded his head noncommittally. Even the weakest warrior here would be an invincible existence in the lower realm. Let's kill the enemy together. Looking at the 9 heavens 10 earths cultivators who were bathed in blood, the demon leader king, old celestial, immortal palace's palace master, and the other experts all felt their blood boil. They roared out loudly while raising their auras to the limit, slaughtering their way into the battlefield. Kill all of these invading foreign enemies. Defend the border with our lives. On the battlefield, more and more cultivators fell. Their blood dyed the desert red. Even so, not a single cultivator retreated. There was no fear on their faces. Their eyes were filled with the desire to kill. Boom. In Heaven Abyss battlefield, an initial stage supreme being from the 9 heavens 10 earths was blasted back by a veteran supreme being from the other side. However, right when the foreign old supreme being condensed an unmatched attack, preparing to seriously injure this initial stage supreme being from the 9 heavens 10 earths, a terrifying rumbling noise erupted on the battlefield. Immediately afterwards, strange void ripples appeared in the heavens. An incomparably massive primal chaos giant palm descended from above, grabbing that veteran supreme being from the other side. Then, with a hong noise, he was crushed to death. It wasn't just his flesh, even his primordial spirit was crushed into nothingness. An explosive noise sounded. In that instant, Heaven Abyss battlefield entered a momentary deathly stillness. This was especially the case for the 3 foreign supreme beings who were originally attacking Meng Tianzheng together. Their bodies seemed to freeze up at the same time, immediately turning towards the direction of the explosion, incredibly shocked. The foreign side's 5 great supreme beings, just now, one of them was instantly crushed to death by that giant primal chaos rippling palm. It was to the extent where that supreme being didn't even have time to release a miserable cry. This what happened? Why did Bloodsea Supreme Being die? Where did that giant green palm come from? Could it be that there are still true immortals in the 9 heavens 10 earths? In the endless desert, millions of foreign cultivators looked towards Heaven Abyss battlefield at the same time, their eyes carrying fear, but even more shock and bewilderment. Could it be a king from the immortal ancient era? Were there still people alive from that era? As for the 9 heavens 10 earths cultivators, they stared blankly for a moment. When they recovered from their shock, they became extremely happy, incredibly moved. Every single one of their eyes stared rigidly at that giant primal chaos rippling palm, carrying hope, their bodies trembling slightly. Who is it? A foreign supreme being who was relatively closer to the foreign supreme being who was killed shouted out. His divine senses swept past Heaven Abyss, his ice-cold eyes sweeping over his surroundings. An unmatched voice full of dignity reverberated through the battlefield. Chila. Right at this time, a pitch-black opening split open above his head. Inside the opening, a giant primal chaos axe wrapped in white radiance hacked down, the scene of tens of thousands of people prostrating themselves in worship vaguely visible. Unlike the previous supreme being, this supreme being clearly had long been on guard. The instant the giant primal chaos axe appeared, his entire body erupted with 9-colored immortal light. A pitch-black spear appeared in his hands. Then, he stepped on 9-colored immortal light, facing that giant primal chaos axe with the spear in hand. Gotcha! However, the instant they clashed, the pitch-black spear shattered, turning into an endless rain of light, scattering outwards. That foreign supreme being's pupils suddenly contracted, chilliness surging within his mind. He didn't hesitate in the slightest, raising his hand to face this attack. However, that giant primal chaos axe that smashed down didn't attach any importance to this supreme being's attack at all, easily cutting through this supreme being's arm like tofu, and then it hacked down from his head. Before a miserable scream could completely spread outwards, that supreme being's flesh and primordial spirit were hacked in half by this giant primal chaos axe, and then they exploded, scattering into heaven abyss. Soon afterwards, heaven abyss and the boundless desert became completely still. The three foreign supreme beings who were originally attacking Meng Tianjing gave each other a look, and then they immediately huddled together, all of them vigilantly looking at the giant primal chaos palm and giant primal chaos axe that stopped not too far away, their eyes carrying a bit of alarm. It's a mortal ancient's king. It is definitely a mortal ancient's king. He saw that desolate border was about to be broken, so he took action. Kill. The 9 heavens 10 earths soldiers looked at the giant palm and giant axe in heaven abyss, surging with fighting spirit, their auras surging. How is this possible? Didn't they say that their true immortals all died? The expressions of the foreign cultivators were incomparably ugly, overcast to the extreme. Wong. Under the eyes of countless cultivators from the other side and 9 heavens 10 earths, heaven abyss battlefield rumbled with noise. Strand after strand of ripples scattered outwards. A young man stood with his hands behind his back, looking like a monarch patrolling the 9 heavens, slowly walking out from within, his indifferent eyes sweeping over this place. Turns out it was you. When he saw the appearance of the one who appeared, the pupils of the initial stage supreme being who was previously saved by the giant primal chaos palm rapidly widened, carrying great shock. He was precisely the supreme being who stood on Imperial Pass City Wall, the first to see Chu Bei. Was it your respected self who saved me just now? Chang Tian's supreme being spoke, cupping his fists towards Chu Bei. He really found it hard to imagine that the mysterious person Meng Tianjing brought back was actually this terrifying. It's him, the one Elder Meng brought back. Was it him who took action just now? He easily killed 2 foreign supreme beings. Is it true, immortal great one? The 9 heavens 10 earths cultivators stared blankly at Chu Bei and heaven abyss, all of their eyes carrying worship, their mouths muttering to themselves. However, the Taodai King, Old Celestial, Demon Leader King, these experts didn't reveal too much shock, as if they had guessed the one who took action from the very start. Dao friend Chu Bei, I'll have to trouble you to take action. Meng Tianjing cupped his fists towards Chu Bei, his words carrying gratitude. And who are you? In these hundreds of thousands of years, why have we never seen you take action? The 3 foreign supreme beings who surrounded Meng Tianjing previously frowned, their eyes locked onto Chu Bei, questioning him. It's you. You destroyed this emperor's right eye. Right at this time, a roar filled with heaven, overflowing anger sounded from the other side of heaven abyss, the roar carrying thick killing intent. In the blink of an eye, a blast of black mist appeared in heaven abyss. It was completely round like a ball, 100,000 zhang in diameter, pitch black, intimidating. This was an eyeball. When it was closed, it was hidden within the black mist, difficult to discover. Meanwhile, when it opened slightly, the eye released scarlet light, like flames, but also like lightning, directly shaking up heaven abyss. Suddenly, it opened wide. In that instant, the surroundings turned into scarlet multicolored light, filled with blood-colored radiance, carrying a wave of deep killing intent, as if one fell into a blood-colored hell. Devil Pupil Supreme Being. Hurry and look. It's Devil Pupil Supreme Being. While looking at the 100,000 zhang eyeball that suddenly appeared in heaven abyss battlefield, the foreign cultivators were first stunned, and then they revealed excited expressions, crying out crazily. This was one of their foreign side's 3 most powerful supreme beings apart from undying beings. It could be said that it already had half a foot in the undying level. The foreign undying beings, these were unmatched existences equivalent to the 9 heavens 10 earths true immortals. When they looked at the 9 heavens, 10 earths, powerful cultivators, when they saw the 100,000 zhang eyeball, their expressions of joy gradually replaced by seriousness, revealing horror. They sensed a wave of heart-shaking aura from this eyeball, powerless to resist. I have a blood feud with this person. Leave him to me. You three continue to capture the other supreme beings. When the calm voice sounded, that 100,000 zhang eyeball continuously shrunk, until it turned into the appearance of a middle-aged man, black mist curling about his body. However, his right eye disappeared. Only the left eye that swirled with stars remained. When they heard Devil Pupil Supreme Being's words, the four inside's 3 great supreme beings gave each other a look. After nodding, they all rushed murderously at Meng Tianzheng again. Fight! Meng Tianzheng was fearless, shouting loudly, facing them head-on. The enmity of destroying my eye, this emperor will repay it 100 times over. Devil Pupil Supreme Being stepped forward. With each step, the irregular scenes behind him would change. Endless roiling black mist surged like great rivers, giving one a feeling of endless gloominess, as if they arrived in hell. Amidst rumbling sounds, a black long sword appeared in Devil Pupil Supreme Being's hands. The sword trembled slightly. The divine force within the bodies of all of the cultivators in the boundless desert mysteriously froze for an instant. If I were you, I would have hibernated for 1,000,000 years, and not be in a hurry to court death like you. Chu Bei looked at Devil Pupil Supreme Being with a look of contempt. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. As his mocking voice fell, Chu Bei took a step forward, and a huge Tai Chi pattern appeared under his feet. All things source energy and grand mist energy carried Xiao Hei's power and evolved violently. The former transformed into a longbow, and blue-green light swam around the bow. The latter transformed into a black arrow, and the arrow was surrounded by primal chaos. King Taotai, Old Celestial Being, and the other powerhouses cast their gazes towards Chu Bei. They had never seen this scene before. Arrogant fool. The reason why you were defeated back then was because it was only one of my eyes. Devil Pupil Supreme Being shouted coldly, and then his body became illusory, directly entering the long sword. Man and sword became one, turning into a wisp of black light, shaking heaven abyss, and charging towards Chu Bei. Clang! Chu Bei smiled knowingly, holding the bow in one hand and an arrow in the other. He casually drew the longbow and shot the arrow out. Chapter 461. Dang! On the battlefield, a clear sound rang out. That strand of black light formed by Devil Pupil Supreme Being was instantly completely penetrated by the arrow. Ah! Amidst a miserable cry, a figure flew out from within the black light, wishing to escape. However, before the black figure could get far, the arrow that originally pierced through actually turned back. Gotcha! The arrow returned, the black figure collapsing. You deserve to die. My king will get revenge for me. A voice that was filled with unwillingness drifted through heaven abyss, spreading to the entire boundless desert. Even in death, Devil Pupil Supreme Being didn't expect this fella to already be strong enough to kill him with a single arrow. Dead? Devil Pupil Supreme Being is dead? This is impossible. He is number 1 under the Undying. How could he be defeated? Could it be that that fella really is an immortal from that side? Devil Pupil Supreme Being's unwilling voice sounded by their ears. In the boundless desert battlefield, the expressions of the foreign cultivators changed greatly, looking at each other in dismay, extremely alarmed. Everyone, listen to my orders, immediately retreat. Devil Pupil Supreme Being was killed. The 3 supreme beings who surrounded Meng Tianzheng were first stunned, and then they snapped back to reality. After giving Chu Bei a look with incomparable restraining fear, they immediately gave the 10 million cultivators an order. Since you all came, why are you still leaving? A calm voice that didn't contain the slightest bit of emotion sounded from Chu Bei's mouth. He gave the 3 foreign supreme beings an indifferent look. The surrounding chaotic energy turned into 3 arrows, at the same time knocked on the bowstring, pulling back the bowstring and shooting out. These 3 arrows seemed to have the ability to lock down the void, moreover able to automatically lock onto their targets. With a pu sound, under countless gazes, they separately pierced through the bodies of the three foreign supreme beings. Uniform rumbling noises sounded. In the end, the three foreign supreme beings also exploded, their flesh and primordial spirits destroyed. Dead. The foreign invading supreme beings are all dead. Kill. Don't let these foreign dogs return. Kill them all. Boss Chu is mighty. The 9 heavens 10 earth soldiers snapped out of their shock, immediately cheering. Roar. Right at this time, on the other side of heaven abyss, in the foreign realm, a long roar sounded, shaking up desolate border. Foreign undying. Meng Tianzheng and the other 4 early-stage supreme beings' faces changed drastically when they sensed the aura. They became extremely gloomy. Chu Bei's brows also furrowed, focusing his eyes towards the other side of heaven abyss. In the other side sky dome, there seemed to be a speck of silver light. He was staring at desolate border. Chu Bei could feel the killing intent contained within the silver light, which was specifically targeted at him. Rumble. A foreign, undying aura pervaded the air. There were fluctuations of the highest level that surged, oppressing the sky dome, engulfing the great desert. Incomparable, undying might poured over from the other side like a roiling river. It wanted to blast towards Chu Bei, but when it passed by heaven abyss, the originally calm heaven origin suddenly became a heaven-devouring giant mouth, effectively devouring that undying might. As expected, once the foreign undying takes action, heaven abyss will stop them. In the desert battlefield, the 9 heavens 10 earth soldiers were secretly delighted, and then they continued to chase after those foreign invaders. Die. Separated by heaven abyss, an indistinct voice sounded from the other side. Immediately afterwards, only to see a finger appear in the other side sky dome, golden in color, crushing heaven and earth, bringing some falling stars with it, actually directly crushing towards heaven abyss. This scene was extremely terrifying. This type of massive golden finger was like a pillar that supported the heavens, the rumbling noises ear-splitting. Judging from its trajectory, it was precisely in Chu Bei's direction. The foreign undying took action. Could it be that he wants to ignore heaven abyss, fight against that true immortal great one? The 9 heavens 10 earth's cultivators were horrified. They had all heard about the various things that happened in heaven abyss. Even if it was someone as powerful as a foreign undying, a single misstep could result in them being devoured. Meanwhile, right now, that foreign undying was currently sitting high up in the sky dome, actually taking action against the mysterious true immortal on their side. Chu Bei's eyes narrowed, remaining silent. He was hesitating whether or not he should use a level 19 good right now. After all, his current level 18 Xiao Hei's strength was only equivalent to the true immortal realm. If he wanted to kill the other party's undying, the difficulty wasn't small. Hong. However, as soon as that foreign undying's golden finger made contact with heaven abyss flickered with blazing light, instantly wrapping around that golden finger. Chi. Under the gazes of countless creatures, that foreign undying's finger actually instantly turned into withered bones, flesh completely disappearing without a trace. Moreover, the blazing light released from heaven abyss even followed the golden finger, extending towards that foreign undying sitting high up in the sky dome. Ao. Even though there was heaven abyss between them, they could still see that foreign undying being wrapped in blazing light, his appearance of extreme pain. Even though his entire body released immortal light, it still couldn't stop that wave of mysterious nibbling power from heaven abyss. Just what kind of power does heaven abyss have? Who exactly was it built for? It can actually injure even a legendary existence like an undying being, too terrifying. Fortunately, heaven abyss exists. Otherwise, the foreign side has an undying being. While our side didn't even have a true immortal before, we would have long been captured by those foreign dogs. Who said our side doesn't have a true immortal? Isn't that mysterious senior a true immortal? The 9 heavens 10 earth's cultivators looked at that foreign undying being tormented by heaven abyss power, revealing secret delight. You were too careless. Suddenly, a calm voice sounded from the foreign side again. Immediately afterwards, They only saw a strand of ripples lightly sweep past that foreign, undying being. The heaven abyss power that was originally nibbling at him was mysteriously scattered. At the same time, imperial bells sounded. Even though the great desert was vast and boundless, even though there was heaven abyss protection and isolation, regardless of whether it was the 9 heavens, 10 earths, or the foreign side, all creatures could still hear the copper bells ringing between heaven and earth. Moreover, no matter how far away they were, even if they didn't have heavenly eyes, all creatures in desolate border could still see the scenes at the limits of the foreign side's horizon. There was a war chariot that slowly drove over. It carried all types of traces, all of them left behind by weapon attacks, for example, axe marks, sword marks, blade marks. The surface was mottled, recording the glory of great battles one after another. This was a war chariot pulled by an old bull, slowly moving, heading towards heaven abyss. That bull's figure was massive, dark red fur, but its back was golden, the 2 horns also like this, as if cast from gold. It was in charge of pulling the chariot. Many thanks to my king for lending a hand. That foreign undying being immediately bowed towards the war chariot, his words carrying gratitude. We kowtow to my king. As the war chariot stopped, all of the foreign cultivators knelt down, all of them raising their eyes towards the ancient war chariot, incomparably pious. Who is the one in that war chariot? Why is even a foreign, undying being bowing down? King? An undying king? What kind of existence is that? The 9 heavens, 10 earths cultivators looked towards that ancient war chariot from heaven abyss, all of them sucking in cold breaths of air, their bodies becoming ice cold, feeling as if they fell into an ice house. Is it a foreign, undying king? Meng Tianzheng muttered to himself, looking at the other supreme beings in dismay, his expression incredibly grave. An undying king has woken up. Is he going to knock on the pass? Can heaven abyss really stop him? On the distant imperial pass walls, there were 2 incomparably powerful primordial spirits floating, looking towards the other side of heaven abyss in a daze. They were precisely Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyin. That is Anlin's war chariot. Chu Bei calmly said. What? The one in that war chariot is the foreign Anlin. When the supreme beings heard this name, they were all extremely shocked. Anlin's name. Even in the 9 heavens, 10 earths ancient texts, there were bloody historical records. In immortal ancient great era, his name shook the world. His reputation was established by stepping on the corpses of countless experts, shocking past and present, sweeping through the 9 heavens, 10 earths. Back then, there were indeed people who could fight against him, but in the end, they all died, their bones buried in the last great era, blood soaking the yellow earth. Anlin's name shook the world, intimidating the world, moving through endless time, sweeping through all enemies. What a pity. Back then, my 9 heavens immortal kings were outnumbered, not having the chance to fight one-on-one against him. Otherwise, this war chariot might not have appeared in this great era. A supreme being seemed to know something, saying this quietly. Dao Friend Chu, in your opinion, do you feel that this undying king has a chance of breaking through heaven abyss? Meng Tianjing looked towards Chu Bei. He was at the peak of supreme being level, able to see further than normal people. He could sense Chu Bei's strength. In his opinion, the other party should be a veteran true immortal. Only, even if he was a Mahayana true immortal, there was no way he could be the undying king's opponent. Thus, he didn't have any hopes that Chu Bei could defeat the undying king, only placing his hopes on heaven abyss, hoping that heaven abyss could stop the undying king's footsteps. Towards Meng Tianjing's question, Chu Bei shook his head, remaining silent. Anlin's appearance meant that if he didn't use the level 19 goods, just the current level 18 Xiao Hei's strength, he wouldn't be the other party's opponent. After all, the undying king was too powerful. In the great desert, the bell sounds were clear and pleasant, long and drawn out, sounding from the limits of the horizon, extremely pleasant to listen to. However, in the ears of the 9 heavens 10 earths cultivators, it was like a soul-capturing song from the 9 underworlds. That sound came from the war chariot. The imperial bell sounds weren't loud, but they clearly spread through the great desert, passing through Imperial Pass, entering everyone's ears. When they heard the bell sounds, Imperial Pass cultivators only felt their scalps go numb, every strand of hair feeling as if it weighed 1,000 gene, as if their scalps were going to be ripped off, chills running from head to toe. When an undying king descended, who could face him? The great desert was boundless, no end in sight. That ancient war chariot was still at the other end of the desert, not under heaven abyss. Logically speaking, they shouldn't have been able to see it, but in reality, it was clearly reflected in everyone's eyes. The golden-backed barbaric bull's figure was robust, extremely bold and powerful, carrying chaotic energy. Moreover, its bull horns were golden, not too fast or too slow. The ancient war chariot it pulled carried mottled battle scars, as if it was a living history book, recording the past world's shocking great battles. When the bull hooves landed on the ground, it was as if it was trampling on the hearts of everyone in Imperial Pass. My king has already arrived. Heaven Abyss cannot be stopped. When Heaven Abyss is broken, I will definitely cut you down with my own hands. On the other side, that undying being's entire body was silver-white, full of vicious killing intent. His voice condensed into wisps, penetrating Heaven Abyss, ringing through the 9 heavens, 10 earths. When the cultivators of the 9 heavens, 10 earths heard this, they all trembled inwardly. They all couldn't help but look towards Chubei's direction. They knew that the foreign undying being's words were targeted at this mysterious true immortal. The foreign undying being floated at the other end of the great desert, extremely far away. However, that type of aura, that type of power that looked down on the 9 heavens, 10 earths was still released, making everyone feel great humiliation. Chapter 462. If Heaven Abyss is really broken, do you think that mysterious true immortal can stop that otherworldly undying? Undying is too terrifying. Don't forget, the 9 heavens, 10 earths true immortals are on the same level as the imperishable. That true immortal senior shouldn't have a problem dealing with the foreign undying. I'm just worried about whether he's a match for the creature in the chariot. That's right, that's the undying emperor that even foreign undyings have to bow to. The cultivators of the 9 heavens and 10 earths first glanced at Chubei, then looked to the other side of Heaven Abyss with serious expressions. The Taodai King, Old Celestial, Immortal Palace Master, and the other experts' gazes towards Chubei also wavered for the first time. It wasn't that Chubei's strength was weak, but rather that he might have to face a foreign king. Immortal King. He was an unrivaled existence in the immortal ancient era. The imperial bell sounded in a long and drawn-out manner. The old golden-back ox pulled the ancient war chariot, slowly approaching Heaven Abyss. The pressure was suffocating. From the beginning until the end, there was no movement from within the carriage, nor was there a single word. It was as if everything in the world, the myriad of living beings, the brilliance of the heavens, and the boundless mortal world were nothing in his eyes. Finally, the war chariot got close, truly arriving below Heaven Abyss. At this moment, the golden-backed barbaric bull seemed to be suppressed by Heaven Abyss. Its speed slowed down, and in the end, it stopped in front of Heaven Abyss, unable to take another step forward. Boom! Suddenly, the war chariot rumbled as a strand of supreme light gushed out from within. It seemed to have come from the hand of the person within the war chariot, and it seemed as if it wanted to directly pierce through the abyss and shatter the world. I don't fear death. This is the only battle. However, just as the supreme light from the war chariot shot into Heaven Abyss, a roar came from the huge black hole-like haze above Heaven Abyss. The roar shook the mountains and rivers and pierced through the sun and moon. It was very tragic. Did you hear that? Whose voice is that? Could there be living people in Heaven Abyss? Could it be a supreme expert of our 9 heavens, 10 earths? Hearing this, the cultivators of the 9 heavens, 10 earths shuddered. In the next moment, under their shocked gazes, an enormous city appeared in Heaven Abyss. It cast down a large shadow, covering the heavens. The light it released carried strange and complex symbols. When the giant city appeared, countless foreign cultivators revealed looks of shock. It was clear that they didn't know that Heaven Abyss actually had this type of existence. Could this be the immortal city that immortal ancient seven kings controlled? A supreme being seemed to know something. Looking towards that enormous city in heaven abyss, his expression stirred up. There were records that in immortal ancient great era, seven kings commanded an immortal city to defend desolate border, forcing the other side to retreat many times. But for some unknown reason, this immortal city disappeared from the river of time. Now, it seemed like it had always been there, intimidating the other side's undying existences in heaven abyss. I don't fear death. This is the only battle. The same voice resounded through the battlefield again, shocking all of the creatures in the 9 heavens, 10 earths, and the other side. That city surged with unmatched killing intent, immortal light, all immortal Tao symbols, terrifying beyond compare. It shook the past, present, and future, illuminating the boundless desert. It's the Scarlet Eye Elder. It's him. Number 1 under immortal ancient 7 kings. When they saw the appearance of the single-armed elder who appeared above the giant city, all of the supreme beings of the 9 heavens, 10 earths, including Ming Tianzheng, cried out in alarm. While looking at the single-armed elder, Chu Bei's brows furrowed slightly. This single-armed elder's aura was extremely powerful, far exceeding that of the other side's undying existence. However, his aura instead gave one a feeling of being tossed about by a storm, about to be destroyed at any time, as if a candle flame had reached the end of its life. Fight! The single-armed elder's figure moved, standing on top of the city, controlling the immortal city to smash down on the other side. Turns out there were still survivors. Back then, even your kings died in battle. Could it be that you want to stop this king with just you? This was the first time a voice sounded from the war chariot, incredibly calm, carrying disdain. This was arrogance that overlooked the 9 heavens, 10 earths. Then, the war chariot rumbled. A hand reached out from within. Even though it was slow, it was extremely powerful, reaching towards the heavens. Honglong. The immortal city smashed down, endless immortal Tao symbols flickering about. The void exploded, unmatched killing intent erupting. However, these immortal Tao symbols couldn't injure the hand that reached out from the war chariot. What was even more terrifying was that in the end, that hand actually propped up the entire immortal city, as if it possessed heaven-supporting power. Is this the other side's undying king? It is just a single hand, yet it actually supported the immortal city controlled by immortal ancient 7 kings. What do we do now? Could it be that the other side's undying king really can cross heaven abyss? Is Imperial Pass really going to be broken through today? Inside heaven abyss, that immortal city erupted with endless immortal light, yet it couldn't force back Anlin's hand. When they saw this scene, the 9 heavens, 10 earths cultivators all shivered inwardly. Immortal ancient Scarlet Eye Elder was still alive, moreover appearing. He was known as number 1 below the 7 kings, but even with him controlling the immortal city, he still couldn't stop the other side's undying King Anlin's advance. If the city exists, then everyone exists. If the city dies, then everyone dies. Kill. On top of the city, the single-armed elder roared out in grief. His scarlet eyes swirled about, producing scarlet-black flames. However, the flames in his eyes didn't shoot out, but rather burned his own body and sparkling jade-like bones. What is the Scarlet Eye Elder doing? The Supreme Beings frowned. He doesn't have much life left. He is burning his withered body, trying to transfer Heaven Abyss' most powerful natural law force, control the immortal city, wishing to take Anlin down with him. Chu Bei said calmly. Can he succeed? Meng Tianzheng looked towards Chu Bei, asking with a frown. Chu Bei shook his head. The difference in strength is too great. When he heard Chu Bei's words, Meng Tianzheng's fists clenched tightly, his expression changing slightly. Is there any way to stop him? This is his final long-cherished wish. Just satisfy him. Chu Bei raised his eyes, looking towards the single-armed elder whose entire body was burning with black flames, saying this with a sigh. Honglong. A rumbling noise sounded. The mortal city shone, especially at the center. There was a heaven-overflowing streak of light that directly pierced the heart of Heaven Abyss, carrying endless magical force, immortal might matchless. In that instant, heaven abyss burned, releasing heaven filling immortal energy, turning into flames, turning into symbols, merging with immortal city. Immortal Tao laws descended streak after streak from the bottom of immortal city, like world-shocking divine rainbows, imperishable for all ages. If gods stood in their way, they would kill gods. If Buddhas stood in their way, they would kill Buddhas, exterminating all creatures. Ants, nothing more than meaningless struggles. An indifferent voice of disdain sounded. A decree flew out from Anlin's war chariot, radiance illuminating the endless sky, carrying an unmatched aura, locking down the world, facing the endless streaks of immortal Tao laws. The Scarlet Eye Elder burned his withered body, drawing on heaven abyss power, borrowing immortal city's power to launch an unmatched attack. Undying King Anlin released a decree, facing it. Hong. The two collided. In that instant, heaven and earth collapsed, ghosts wept and deities howled. Above the boundless battlefield, the distant sky dome seemed to be opening again, being refined anew. This was especially the case with that decree that carried the aura of an undying king, unmatched in the heavens above and earth below, looking down on past, present, and future. At this moment, heaven and earth continuously recombined and was destroyed. The most terrifying thing happened in Heaven Abyss, this type of battle unimaginable to outsiders, shaking up past and present. Ordinary people couldn't understand. This was a confrontation of the highest level. In the end, only an expanse of primal chaos remained in everyone's line of sight. After who knew how much time had passed, everyone felt suffocated, even their souls becoming rigid. Only then did the boundless battlefield become peaceful, the scenery gradually becoming discernible. The great desert was still there, not destroyed. It could only be said that regardless of whether it was the Scarlet Eye Elder or Anlin, even though they were matchless and unmatched, all of their attacks were restrained to the extreme, not causing any accidental injuries. The 9 heavens, 10 earths, and the 4 inside's great army weren't damaged in the slightest. If you took a step further, this king might have treated you seriously. However, in the end, you still stopped, moreover with a ruined body. A sigh sounded from within the war chariot. The previous great collision had a result. The decree was still there, that immortal city also unharmed. However, it became dim, the resplendent, endless light disappearing. On the city wall, the single-armed elder turned around, lowering his head to look at the 9 heavens, 10 earths behind him. His entire body's flesh was already burned away, only a skeleton remained. 2 streaks of scarlet light shone from his eyes, revealing sorrow. His unwilling gaze shifted away from the 9 heavens, 10 earths, landing on Anlin's war chariot again. His gaze became cold and fierce, carrying killing intent. He took a step out. Heaven and earth trembled, releasing strange wong sounds, as if they were weeping. Pacha! The skeleton shattered, turning into a blast of black flames. The flames rapidly expanded, and then in the end, they contracted into a terrifying black fireball. That was what the Scarlet Eye Elder turned into. He used the last of his life force to rush towards Anlin's war chariot. However, following a faint sigh from within the war chariot, a giant palm gently slapped towards the black fireball. Chila! The black fireball was destroyed. Did the Scarlet Eye Elder evolve? The 9 heavens, 10 earths cultivators stared blankly at the black fireball that turned into nothingness, their faces gradually becoming pale. In that instant, there wasn't a single cultivator who wasn't moved, a mysterious feeling of sorrow surging within them. They all bowed down piously in that direction. In the past, they didn't recognize the Scarlet Eye Elder. Even if they knew, they only saw him from ancient texts. However, just now, they personally saw a single-armed elder burn the last of his life to protect Imperial Pass. Even when his life blood flowed out completely, he still didn't cower back. The Song of Life erupted angrily. He used his body to prove his will, using the last of his strength to protect Imperial Pass with his life. Master, did that grandfather die? Sure Hao pulled Chu Bei's large hand, his eyes blurry. Chu Bei nodded. He took a deep breath, a bit melancholy. This is his long-cherished wish. His final destination is precisely this wasteland, the same as those immortal kings in immortal ancient. The supreme beings gave each other a look, and then they looked towards the empty immortal city that was still floating in heaven abyss, their expressions becoming incomparably ugly. Are there any survivors from the past? Inside the foreign war chariot, Anlin's voice sounded again, piercing through heaven abyss, scattering through the 9 heavens 10 earths. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. No one in the 9 heavens 10 earths replied, entering a deathly silence. Chu Bei naturally sensed the countless pairs of eyes on the battlefield landing on his body. He also understood the hopes these soldiers had for him, wishing for him to stand out. However, even under so many encouraging gazes, Chu Bei still didn't express anything. Before that, he had to make sure that the Anlin on the other side really could ignore Tinyuan's suppression. After all, the right to use level 19 goods was still precious. Did they all die? Anlin's voice sounded. The war chariot trembled again. However, this time, it wasn't a giant palm, but rather a giant fist. This fist directly smashed towards heaven abyss. Wherever it passed, stellar streams flowed, great stars collapsed. Wong wong wong. Heaven abyss trembled. That massive black hole released incomparable devouring force. This was heaven abyss natural law power. It was doing its best to resist that giant fist. A long time later, Kacha, a clear sound rang through the air. Heaven abyss produced a fine crack. A strand of aura seeped out from that fist, arriving in the 9 heavens 10 earths. In that instant, miserable howls sounded from the 9 heavens 10 earths. The cultivators closest to that strand of aura directly exploded, dying. The cultivators further away had their bodies crack apart, as if they were cut by invisible blades, their faces full of fear. Hurry and retreat. Meng Tianzheng immediately gave the order, his face also carrying horror. Even though that was just a strand of aura, the level of power and great Tao profound mysteries it contained was something even a peak supreme being like him found hard to resist. He couldn't help but kneel down in worship. Is this the strength of a foreign, undying king? Under a single fist, not even heaven abyss can stop it. Once heaven abyss is blasted through, won't the 9 heavens 10 earths perish? Did this day still come? The 9 heavens 10 earths cultivators looked at that fist in heaven abyss, all of their faces filled with fear, their eyes carrying horror. As for the foreign cultivators, they were incomparably excited, cheering in joy. Time passed second by second. Kacha, another loud noise sounded. That massive fist pierced through heaven abyss, bringing with it a world-destroying, unmatched aura as it descended upon the 9 heavens 10 earths. In that instant, desolate border collapsed, ghosts wept and deities howled, the stars growing dim. While looking at the terrified expressions of the 9 heavens 10 earths' countless cultivators, Chu Bei's divine will moved. However, right when he exchanged for the most powerful level 19 killing goods, preparing to face Anlin's fist imprint, the void rumbled. Then, a drop of blood appeared out of thin air, releasing dazzling blood-red radiance, wrapping around Anlin's fist imprint, forcibly erasing it. In the time it took for sparks to fly off a flint, everything became calm again. Hurry and look. At this moment, the eyes of the 9 heavens 10 earths cultivators all looked towards the same direction, their eyes carrying horror, faces full of disbelief, unable to believe the scene they just saw. That was a drop of blood, bright red like a fiery diamond, bright red and translucent. As soon as it appeared, divine multicolored light rushed into the heavens, releasing a wave of terrifying and immeasurable pressure. What was even more terrifying was that it actually erased Anlin's fist imprint. Not even heaven abyss could stop. Just now, if not for this drop of blood, all of Imperial Pass and even the 9 heavens 10 earths would have been destroyed. This seems to be that drop of blood from Immortal Tomb. Tao Dai King, Immortal Palace Master, Old Celestial, and the other 5 great overlords gave each other a look. While feeling incomparably shocked, they all looked in Shirhao's direction. They clearly remembered that this drop of blood entered that little fella's body in the end. At the same time, the foreign cultivators' fine hairs stood on end. They looked at each other in dismay, their expressions a bit absent-minded. What kind of blood was this? It was just a single drop, yet it actually stopped the attacks of their undying kings. Immortal Wang and Zhao Haoyan's primordial spirits on Imperial Pass City Wall were also stunned, extremely shocked. Countless eyes focused on this drop of blood, shockingly resplendent. What left the 9 heavens, 10 earths, and foreign cultivators the most inconceivable was that this drop of blood didn't carry any killing intent, as if it was a harmless drop of blood. Even though this was the feeling, it mysteriously gave off a type of pressure that was terrifying to the point where it was hard to resist. Chapter 463. A drop of blood floated in the void of the 9 heavens and 10 earths. The pressure it released penetrated heaven abyss, landing on the foreign land. All of the foreign cultivators were directly forced to kneel down, unable to help but tremble. It was inconceivable and too shocking. Where did this monster come from? Let me have a look. The foreign undying existence spoke. One could only see his eyes swirl with immortal light, piercing through heaven abyss, landing on that drop of blood. After entering the immortal realm, he had the heavenly eye, which could see through everything in the world. However, no matter how he stared at this drop of blood, no matter how dazzling the immortal radiance in his eyes was, he just couldn't see through it, unable to see through it. The surface of the drop of blood was wrapped in strands of chaotic aura. It was impossible to see what kind of laws and order were contained within the blood. How could this be? Why is it that not even I can see through it? A long time later, the foreign undying released a cry of shock. Your realm is not there yet. An ethereal voice came from within the Anlin war chariot. At the same time, a wisp of aura spread out from the war chariot. In the next moment, the pressure that the drop of blood enveloped the foreign cultivator's body disappeared without a trace. Thank you for saving me, Your Majesty. The foreign cultivators kowtowed towards Anlin's war chariot. When they looked towards that floating drop of blood again, their faces carried a bit of restraining fear. Is this drop of blood also from our 9 heavens, 10 earths? Could it be that he is the blood of immortal ancient 7 kings? I wonder where this blood came from. Hope is still here. We cannot give up. Looking at the drop of blood in front of them, the gloominess of the cultivators of the 9 heavens and 10 earths was swept away. They exclaimed loudly, and there was a hint of hope in their eyes. Meanwhile, at this moment, Shihao's eyes were widened. He looked at Chu Bei with great fright. At the same time, he didn't forget to point at himself, and then at that drop of blood. Master, that drop of blood flew out. Shihao's trembling voice sounded by his ears. Chu Bei nodded slightly. His heart was also a bit shaken. This drop of blood had followed Yifan before, yet it was perfectly compatible with Shihao. Rumble, accompanied by a loud noise. That drop of blood suddenly flickered with blood-red radiance, starting to erupt with incomparable surging aura. It was like a sea, shaking heaven abyss until it resonated, trembling intensely, about to collapse. Another earth-shaking explosion rang out. Inside heaven abyss, a terrifying aura suddenly filled the air. Immediately afterwards, a great cauldron suddenly appeared, massive beyond compare. It carried the might of lightning, immediately suppressing desolate border. The sudden appearance of the cauldron shocked every cultivator. Where did it come from? Its aura was too terrifying, shaking up the boundless desert in the heavens above and earth below. No one expected that during the great battle, a cauldron would appear, descending into heaven abyss. Enormous stars revolved around the cauldron, one after another. The cauldron gushed with myriad source energy, and the cauldron walls made of immortal gold was dyed with blood. As for the opening of the cauldron, all of the stars in the heavens were about to be swallowed into the cauldron. Lightning from the 9 heavens filled the surroundings. Black, purple, green. All kinds of lightning were present. There were even some lightning that took the form of ancient divine beasts. Just by looking at them, one could not help but kowtow and worship them. Where did this cauldron come from? Could it be related to that drop of blood? All of the foreign creatures, including that undying being, revealed expressions of shock. Could it be the man who appeared above the immortal tomb? While looking at the all-life source energy cauldron, Tao Dai King, Old Celestial, Clan Master Gu Jinwan, and the other experts all sucked in a cold breath of air. As for Ming Tianjung, Immortal Wang, the other supreme beings, as well as the cultivators of the 9 heavens 10 earths, their faces were all at a loss, staring blankly at the two objects in heaven abyss. "My good disciple, did you appear again?" Chu Bei muttered to himself, the corners of his lips curling up. Yi Qingxian pursed her lips, her beautiful eyes couldn't help but become red again. Wang. Suddenly, the great cauldron descended, all life source energy swirling. A wave of power passed through heaven abyss, surging towards the foreign side. Immediately, the great desert trembled, the golden-backed barbaric bull trembling. It immediately released a miserable cry, its legs broken, kneeling in the sky dome above. Not belonging to this era, yet interfering with this king's matters, do you wish to fight across the great river of time? Do you not fear that the great river of time will collapse? Inside the war chariot, Anlin's cold voice sounded, echoing by everyone's ears. One could vaguely hear the cold anger within. What? That great cauldron is not in heaven abyss. It is in another space-time. It crossed the great river of time to come here? Even if it isn't in our space-time, it can actually make the foreign undying king's carriage kneel on the ground. My heavens! This means that the great cauldron's owner, just how powerful is he? Crossing the great river of time, affecting our space-time from another space-time. When they heard Anlin's words, it wasn't just the foreign cultivators. The cultivators of the 9 heavens 10 earths also revealed expressions of shock, full of disbelief. Was there really such a terrifying existence in this world? Finally, under the gaze of countless eyes in desolate border, a figure appeared above the great cauldron. That was a man, his body tall and sturdy, back towards everyone, covered in blood. It was as if he had experienced a bloody battle in another space-time, standing there like a heavenly emperor descending into this world. Roar! At this time, a great roar sounded from within heaven abyss, the roar shaking heaven and earth, making one's heart tremble. After that tall and sturdy man appeared, another creature appeared in everyone's line of sight. There were 2 horns on his head, blood pressure covering the sun and moon, the stars in the heavens shining, resonating with him. They only saw him reach out a great claw, covering endless stars, the stellar stream behind him jumping. With a hong sound, he grabbed towards the tall and sturdy man above the cauldron. Could it be that there is also a great battle in the other space-time separated by time? The 9 heavens 10 earths and the foreign cultivators were all stunned. Not only did the tall and sturdy man with the great cauldron appear, there was also an unmatched creature that followed, fighting with the tall and sturdy man, the battle extremely intense. The tall and sturdy man had his back to everyone, facing the enemy alone. He was extremely calm, as if he had just experienced the most miserable great battle not long ago, slaughtering his way through a great army, now encountering another powerful enemy. Wang. In the battlefield of the other space-time, the tall and sturdy man's body shone, dazzling and resplendent, his head of black hair fluttering about. He stood on the all-life source energy cauldron, his entire body's aura erupting. Moo! At the same time, the golden-backed barbaric bull pulling Anlin's war chariot released a long roar, its voice carrying alarm. Even though there was the great river of time separating them, the battle between the two in heaven abyss still left it horrified. Hong Long. In that battlefield, the tall and sturdy man stood on the cauldron, all life source energy swirling about his body. When he brandished his fist, 9 colored lightning wrapped about the surface of his fist, all types of irregular scenes vaguely visible. His divine might was matchless, eternally unmatched. His fist smashed into the heavens, directly facing the other unmatched creature's great claw that covered the heavens. Pong! Under the sounds of collision, primal chaos erupted in the battlefield of the other space-time. The tall and sturdy man's fist wrapped in 9 colored lightning collided with the great claw that carried the sun, moon, and stars. After just a single exchange, the latter warped and contorted, suffering serious injuries. Miserable cries sounded. That horned creature didn't back up, instead throwing itself at the tall and sturdy man again. Its body was even larger than the stars in the heavens. Only, before it could be seen clearly, it quickly shrunk, turning into a humanoid creature. Chong! The sound of the immortal gold armor and all life source energy cauldron colliding sounded. That giant beast turned into a person, its body covered in green gold battle armor, even its face covered. Only a pair of green eyes could be seen, staring at the tall and sturdy man on the cauldron. These two experts from the other spacetime didn't pay the cultivators on the desolate border battlefield any attention, both of them completely focused on each other, their eyes carrying endless killing intent. Chi, unmatched natural laws danced about, their attack simple, containing the greatest great Tao. The tall and sturdy man stood on the great cauldron, irregular scenes appearing in the all-life source energy behind him, continuous attacks continuously released, like a great river that flowed endlessly. That humanoid creature formed from a vicious beast also continuously displayed great divine abilities, magical force boundless, natural law symbols splitting the heavens, forcibly resisting the lightning might and all-life source energy cauldron. The confrontation between two great experts was unimaginable, shaking up the great river of time until it was about to break apart, as if it was going to change paths again. Who can tell me which era they belong to exactly? Who are they? Where did they come from? The foreign cultivators looked at the great battle of the other space-time in heaven abyss with shock, their faces revealing shock. Master, senior brother is so strong, so strong. Sure Hao's eyes widened, looking at the tall and sturdy figure standing on the cauldron, his small face full of worship. A casual fist from the other party could produce the 9 heavens forbidden lightning. You don't need to be envious. In the near future, you will also enter that cultivation realm. Chu Bei smiled, pinching Shirhao's cheeks. The Taodai King, Old Celestial, Immortal Palace Master, and the other experts were already stupefied. They had seen this figure in Immortal Tomb before, but only now did they truly witness this person's terror. It was simply indescribable. Meng Tianzheng, Immortal Wang, and the other supreme beings also seemed to have lost their souls, absent-mindedly watching the battle in Heaven Abyss. This scene really was too shocking. There were records in bone books that a similar great battle of a different space-time happened in Immortal Ancient, but that was something only a few people saw. When they looked at the current situation, it wasn't only the 9 heavens 10 earths cultivators who were watching over Imperial Pass who saw it. The endless foreign great army also saw everything. Great Ancestor, can your respected self help Father Great One? While looking at the two who were still fighting intensely in the other space-time battlefield, a hint of worry and anxiety appeared on Yi Qingxian's face. She couldn't help but shake Chu Bei's arm, begging. Towards Yi Qingxian's request, Chu Bei shook her head. That creature isn't little Ye's opponent. There is no need to worry. Then that's good. As long as Father Great One is fine, then that's good. When she heard Chu Bei's words, Yi Qingxian lightly patted her chest. The stone hanging from her heart seemed to have been removed. What terrifying power of time! While watching the battle, the foreign undying seemed to have sensed something, their pupils suddenly contracting, their faces full of great horror. On the other space-time battlefield, those two figures both displayed the most terrifying natural laws between heaven and earth. One fist, one kick, flowing light surging, time surging, powerful to the extreme. With a wave of their hands, all things were destroyed. Gradually, they tangled together, as if they became one, fighting intensely. Hong. Finally, that imposing figure who was like a heavenly emperor held a great cauldron with both hands, smashing it fiercely into the body of the creature protected by the green gold battle clothes, producing an intense explosion noise. Amidst the tremendous noise, that creature coughed out blood, its entire body flying outwards. All life source energy cauldron carried lightning might, leaving that creature with serious injuries, its chest caved in, not enough even with the unmatched battle clothes protection. Are they already comparable to kings? The foreign cultivators sucked in a cold breath of air, subconsciously giving Anlin's war chariot a look, and then looking towards the other space-time battlefield, only feeling their scalps turn numb. That cauldron was obvious for all to see. The cauldron mouth took in and sent out all life source energy, many stars rising and falling there. Just how massive was it? The majestic might was matchless. Apart from this, there was lightning surging in the cauldron's surroundings, all types of lightning they had never seen before jumping about. There was no lack of humanoid lightning existences among them, already exceeding heavenly tribulation. Chapter 464. While looking at that great cauldron in the other space-time battlefield, the other side's undying existence shivered inwardly. If he was struck by that great cauldron or that lightning, he might immediately be blasted into ashes. However, that greenish-gold armored creature who was also on the battlefield was actually able to face it head-on. Even though he was injured, he was still unmatched. Hong Long Long. On the other space-time battlefield, that imposing figure moved on the cauldron, quickly chasing after him, exceeding time. Everything seemed to be spinning in reverse, terrifying to the extreme. At this moment, he really looked like a heavenly emperor descending into this world. Long hair scattering down, divine might unmatched. The great cauldron covered the sun and moon, rising into the sky, releasing the might of lightning. The stalwart figure chased after the green-golden armored humanoid. Soon after, he punched out again, striking forward. King, are you going to take action? The other side's undying existence secretly transmitted sound to the war chariot. He sensed the threat of that imposing figure. The other party might very well be related to that drop of blood. They don't belong to the same time as me. If I take action, the great river of time will erupt, the consequences unimaginable. These were Anlin's words, spoken only for that undying existence to hear. They were extremely quiet and calm, as if he was speaking about something unrelated to himself. Even if I die, I am going to drag you into reincarnation with me. The greenish-gold armored humanoid creature suddenly stopped running, suddenly turning around, roaring towards that imposing figure. Immediately afterwards, a honglong noise sounded, heaven and earth splitting, ghosts weeping and deities howling. His greenish-gold armor burned, countless times more resplendent than the stars and moons of the heavens gathered together, condensing stellar force, carrying the highest natural laws, facing that imposing figure, his aura rising to the extreme. Lin, Bing, Do, Ji, Jia. Number, group, forward, advance. 9 heavens lightning descend. Cauldron suppression. At this moment, the imposing figure standing on the cauldron spoke for the first time. Even though there was the great river of time separating them, countless cultivators could still clearly hear his voice, as if the source of this voice was right by their ears. These 3 sentences shook the heavens above and earth below, as if a heavenly emperor descended, incomparably dignified, issuing a decree, grand to the extreme. They only saw the 9 symbols turn into 9 spheres of light, carrying immortal intimidating lightning, entering the all-life source cauldron. In the end, the great cauldron erupted with endless power, producing the highest secret method, instantly blasting through all obstructions. Pooh! That greenish-gold armored creature coughed out blood, staggering backwards. An imposing figure followed closely behind. His movements were grand and majestic. He grabbed his opponent and then tore with force. With a chi-la noise, that creature was torn in half, its primordial spirit also like this. The opening of the cauldron shone, taking in and sending out stellar streams, collecting that creature's corpse and blood inside. Hiss! The battle in the other time-space ended. The 9 heavens, 10 earths, and the other side soldiers sucked in a cold breath of air, all of them trembling because of this. The great battle ended, but the 9 heavens, 10 earths, and foreign cultivators who were watching couldn't calm down for a long time. This scene was too shocking. Who was that stalwart man? Where did he come from? And what era was it? Was it the era before Immortal Ancient, or the era after? A rain of blood drifted down from the battlefield, and every single drop that descended could incinerate a great star and sever a river of stars. Its might was terrifying to the extreme. Fortunately, that was a different space-time and did not belong to this world, so it did not affect them. Look, look, has he noticed us? At this time, the pupils of the foreign creatures contracted, all of them crying out in alarm. They looked towards heaven abyss in horror, their eyes not blinking. On the other time-space battlefield, one could only see that majestic great cauldron take in and send out divine splendor. All life source energy appeared, absorbing all of the enemy's blood essence. Then, that stalwart figure moved on the cauldron, slowly descending, as if he was going to land in heaven abyss. At this moment, heaven abyss scene was grand, as well as incomparable in this world. All life source energy engulfed heaven abyss. The stalwart man stepped on the cauldron, lightning irregular scenes behind him producing all things. He overlooked all living things, exceptional and unmatched. His body was tall and straight, head of black hair scattering down, pupils deep, heroic aura matchless, as if he ruled over the world. What is he trying to do? Stars swirled within the stalwart man's eyes, his gaze landing in the foreign side's direction. In that instant, the foreign army of millions and millions felt as if they were facing a great enemy. For them, this stalwart man was a variable. He suddenly arrived, making them feel restraining fear. After all, their king already broke through heaven abyss, about to wipe out the 9 heavens 10 earths. However, the other party just had to appear at this time, even intimidating their king's mount. At the very least, from the current situation, it would have been better if this stalwart man didn't appear. Did he come to help us? In Imperial Pass, the 9 heavens 10 earths soldiers stared blankly at that figure in heaven abyss whose back was towards them, their hearts trembling, hope surging within their eyes. Will he really help us deal with the foreign side? If he is willing to take action, he should be able to stop that foreign undying king, right? They don't belong to the same space-time. If they really clash, the results will be hard to predict. Imperial Pass supreme beings spoke one after another, muttering to themselves, "Friend, the battle on your side has already ended. You should leave as well." In the foreign side, a calm voice sounded from the ancient war chariot, not carrying the slightest feeling of great changes, as if a young man in his golden years was speaking. The one who spoke was precisely the foreign undying king, Anlin. However, the stalwart figure didn't pay Anlin any attention, only giving the ancient war chariot an indifferent look, still descending. No one could see his true appearance clearly. There was all life source energy surging there, but they could sense that his outer appearance was also in his golden years, because there was a wave of vigorous life force. His eyes were just that deep, as if they were going to pierce through all worlds, peer into heaven's mysteries. Moo! Suddenly, the golden-backed barbaric bull pulling the ancient war chariot released a muffled, thunderous noise again, as if it was currently enduring an unstoppable torment. As the stalwart man descended while stepping on the cauldron, all of its bones continuously released noises, as if they were going to explode. Gotcha! Finally, its 4-leg bones completely shattered. In the end, it crawled in the sky dome, shivering all over. He is provoking the king. The foreign side's millions and millions of cultivators were alarmed. This scene was too shocking. The golden-backed barbaric bull was an ancient beast that pulled an undying king's war chariot. Even if it was an undying existence, they still had to treat it with respect. However, this mysterious expert from who knew which era he came from, yet he displayed an unmatched aura without any misgivings, shattering its 4-leg bones, suppressing the mount of an undying king in front of his face. Just how domineering was this? From past until now, who dared provoke an undying king? This person from the other space-time dared. He was currently taking action. Do you all see? He seriously injured the foreign undying king's mount. He really is helping us. The 9 heavens 10 earths are saved. In Imperial Pass, countless cultivators were excited. They looked at the crawling, golden-backed barbaric bull, clenching their fists, their hearts surging with emotions. From their appearances, it was as if they really wished that the stalwart figure in heaven abyss was themselves, kicking that Anlin's war chariot over. Friend, you have gone too far. Do you wish to interfere with this king's matters? You know that we cannot fight. If you really do that, this space-time, the world behind you, will all undergo great changes. Anlin's voice sounded from the war chariot again, still calm. What if this heavenly emperor insists on interfering? The stalwart man from the other space-time spoke, his words carrying a smile. Then we will fight. Anlin's voice became overcast, full of unmatched dignity. When Anlin's voice fell, a sky-shocking noise sounded. The ancient war chariot shone, chaotic energy surging. Then, the entire boundless desert was illuminated. Anlin appeared. Many people subconsciously closed their eyes. That place was too resplendent. A humanoid creature walked out of the war chariot, one hand behind his back, the other holding a golden ancient spear. That spear was too dazzling, golden radiance illuminating the past, present, and future, as if all ages returned to one, eternally present. In immortal ancient era, this spear pierced through the 10 vicious heavenly horned ants, piercing through immortal kings, divine might unmatched, shocking past and present. The foreign undying King Anlin appeared. His body carried brilliance, surrounding him, impossible to look directly at. It was extremely dazzling and dazzling, just like the golden ancient spear in his hands, full of brilliance. What a pity! We aren't in the same era, or else I would have killed you with a raise of my hand. In heaven abyss, the stalwart man who stood on the cauldron spoke, releasing a deep sigh, as if carrying a bit of helplessness. When these calm words sounded, they immediately shocked the 9 heavens, 10 earths, and the foreign realm. In Imperial Pass, countless cultivators were stirred up, looking at this stalwart man with great admiration. Just how domineering and brash was this? He was definitely a matchless immortal king. This person's disdainful words originated from his unmatched loftiness, making one feel reverence. In the foreign realm, the faces of millions and millions of creatures were ugly, simply not daring to believe what they were hearing. The other party was too arrogant, actually daring to speak such crazy words. You can come and give it a try. This king is unmatched in this world. Why would I fear you? Anlin said with a faint smile, extremely arrogant. Could it be that the king really is going to fight against him? Someone who doesn't belong to this era is going to cross the great river of time to come here. The foreign cultivators looked at each other in dismay, their eyes filled with horror. However, right when everyone thought that the stalwart man from the other space-time was going to display an unmatched divine ability to fight against Anlin, he actually turned around, facing the 9 heavens, 10 earths. It was this drop of blood after all. It brought me here. Unfortunately, this is still not the era I wanted. The stalwart man gave that drop of blood a look, and then his eyes shifted slightly, landing on Chu Bei's body. Immediately afterwards, under the gazes of millions and millions of people in the foreign realm, the 9 heavens, 10 earths, he knelt down across space-time, across endless time. This action immediately shocked all of the soldiers in desolate border. Even that foreign, undying king revealed a rare expression of shock, carrying shock, his face full of disbelief. As for the foreign, undying beings, the instant that stalwart man knelt down in heaven abyss, their expressions already froze, to the extent where even their breathing stopped. Chapter 465. Master. In the other space-time, the imposing figure standing above the all-life source energy cauldron spoke, 2 calm syllables crossing the river of time, crossing endless time and space, drifting through heaven abyss, spreading to the 9 heavens, 10 earths, and the other side. This cry wasn't loud, but it clearly sounded in the depths of the minds of millions and millions of soldiers, shaking their souls. When this voice fell, the boundless, desolate border entered a deathly silence. Regardless of whether it was the soldiers of the 9 heavens, 10 earths, or the creatures of the other side, they all seemed to have been struck by lightning. They stood in place, their expressions sluggish, their faces absent-minded. One by one, their eyes filled with astonishment landed on Chu Bei's body. In that instant, Chu Bei became the focal point of all of desolate borders cultivators, including the king of foreign lands Anlin. How is this possible? Is what I saw real? That mysterious expert from the other space-time, actually knelt down towards that mysterious true immortal. Did you all not hear how he addressed that mysterious true immortal? It's Master. What exactly is going on? If that expert from the other space-time is Senior Chu's disciple, then he should have also lived from the immortal ancient era until now. However, why would the other side's Anlin say that he doesn't belong to this era? Is he really Boss Chu's disciple? After a moment of silence, the cultivators of the 9 heavens 10 earths recovered from their shock, all of them opening their mouths, faces full of disbelief as they stared at Chu Bei, paying attention to the other party's every move. Dao friend Chu, you still have this type of disciple? Meng Tianjing's throat squirmed. He had lived for millions of years, experienced all kinds of great storms, but right now, he couldn't maintain that type of extraordinary indifference, a look of shock on his face. He found it hard to imagine that an existence who could wipe out a stellar river with a raise of his hand, able to shatter a golden-backed barbaric bull with a strand of his might, daring to threaten to kill undying King Anlin, would actually call this Dao friend Chu before him his master. In his opinion, even though this Boss Chu's strength was above his, he was still only at the true immortal realm, far from being comparable to an immortal king. However, that expert from the other space-time, who had at least immortal king strength, knelt down before him. He really couldn't figure out what was going on with this scene in front of him. Which era did the immortal king expert come from? When did he become Boss Chu's disciple? Did you hear that? The guy who dares to call himself king is actually that person's disciple. That person killed 5 of our supreme beings. Even Devil Pupil Sovereign died at his hands. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't even need King to make a move. We would have already taken down the 9 heavens 10 earths. Why is he the master of that person from another space-time? The foreign creatures also reacted one after another, clamoring noises sounding from all directions, intensely discussing Chu Bei, their faces all carrying strange expressions, carrying confusion. My king, what's going on? The foreign undying appeared behind Anlin, frowning slightly, a bit confused. Immortal light flowed in his eyes, piercing through heaven abyss and landing on Chu Bei. After entering the immortal realm, he had the heavenly eye, which could see through everything in the world. However, no matter how he sized up Chu Bei again, no matter how dazzling the immortal light in his eyes was, he still didn't discover any abnormalities. The other party had a mysterious force within his body. He couldn't see through it, unable to determine the power it contained. Previously, he still wanted to attack the other party from across Heaven Abyss, only his attack was neutralized by Heaven Abyss. Now, he never expected that the terrifying expert from the other space-time who had immortal king strength would actually kneel before the target he wanted to kill. This kneeling was too inconceivable, leaving him a bit stunned. There is a mysterious force on his body, but this king is sure that he indeed belongs to this era. Since we are from the same era, this king has never heard of him, then he is nothing more than an ant. The foreign Anlin gave Chu Bei an indifferent look, and then he gave this evaluation. If not for that imposing man from Heaven Abyss kneeling, he wouldn't even give Chu Bei a proper look. My king, then how could he be the master of that immortal king from the other space-time? The foreign undying continued to ask. However, this time, even Anlin shook his head, not giving an answer, as if not even he could figure it out. Father Great One, Yi Qingxian's body was a bit unstable. She looked at the man standing on the cauldron in Heaven Abyss, her expression stirred up, tears continuously flowing from her beautiful eyes. Senior brother, Shihao cried out, to the extent where he couldn't help but wave his fair and tender small hands, his excited eyes carrying blazing worship. Yi Qingxian and Shihao's cries immediately made the atmosphere that had originally calmed down a bit become tense again. Shua. There were countless pairs of eyes that simultaneously landed on Yi Qingxian and Shihao's bodies, their faces full of great shock. They never imagined that apart from Boss Chu having a relationship with that mysterious expert from the other space-time, he actually had this type of daughter. Little Yezi, your kneeling really does give your master a bit of pressure. Chu Bei nodded towards Yi Fan, reaching out a hand to point at his surroundings, the corners of his lips carrying a smile, his expression calm. Master, When will this disciple be like you, able to wander through the great river of time without any restrictions, descend to any era? In the other space-time and heaven abyss, Yi Fan got up, looking at Chu Bei with incomparable respect, releasing a sigh of admiration. That day won't be far. Chu Bei replied indifferently. Master, if it isn't convenient for you to take action, then let this disciple take action in your place. In heaven abyss, Yi Fan bowed towards Chu Bei again, and then he turned around, his eyes landing on the foreign, undying King Anlin's body again. Do you really want to fight? Anlin was calm, one hand behind his back, the other holding the golden ancient spear, divine might matchless. He calmly stood there, brilliance swirling about, divine radiance endless, intimidating the heavens above and earth below. If you establish a blood oath to not approach heaven abyss for 1,000,000 years, this heavenly emperor can leave. Yi Fan said coldly. Hong Long. As Yi Fan's indifferent voice sounded, he struck out a giant palm imprint, reaching into heaven abyss from the other space-time, supporting that dim, immortal city, sending it back into the black hole above heaven abyss. What qualifications do you have to make this king make a blood oath? With just you, it isn't enough. Anlin released a cold snort, his figure moving. With a step, he actually also appeared in heaven abyss. He faced Yi Fan head-on, but they were in different space-time. Since you persist in going about things the wrong way, then this heavenly emperor can only suppress and kill you. The great cauldron beneath Yi Fan's feet shook, all life source energy spreading from the cauldron opening, many stars slowly moving about. In heaven abyss, to be more precise, in that other space-time, giant stars moved about around Yi Fan's body one after another. The great cauldron beneath his feet surged with all life source energy, the stars of the heavens rising and falling. Behind him, a sea of lightning surged, 9 heavens lightning pervading the air. Black, purple, green. All types of lightning covered this place, to the extent where there were even some lightning that turned into the appearances of ancient divine beasts. With just a single look, one couldn't help but bow down in worship. Hong Long. A great noise sounded, crossing the great river of time, entering desolate border. Immediately afterwards, Yi Fan's body shone, becoming resplendent and dazzling. In that instant, the space around his body, time fragments surged, everything seemed to be spinning in reverse, terrifying to the extreme. In that instant, his divine might was matchless. He strode across the great river of time, about to cross space-time and arrive in this era. Just like that, he carried unmatched power as he pressed towards Anlin. Anlin didn't move at all, incomparably calm as he looked at the other space-time Yi Fan was in. He was an immortal king, an unmatched existence from immortal ancient era. He firmly believed that he was unmatched in this world, that regardless of past until now, no one could surpass him. He was arrogant and also confident. It was because he had the capital, transcending above the mortal world. Even in the immortal Dao domain, he was still a king, the ruler of heaven and earth. Qi. The great cauldron flew towards Anlin. A wave of majestic aura seemed to have blasted through space-time barriers, blowing Anlin's hair into the air. When they saw Anlin's hair move, the foreign army of millions and millions immediately revealed looks of horror. What was this person doing? He was provoking their faith, challenging the highest existence in their hearts. Chong. Anlin brandished his spear, the golden spear stabbing forward, also blasting through space-time barriers, smashing into the cauldron just a hair away. Then, it slid past the cauldron, pointing at Yi Fan's chest. Are you really going to ignore the consequences? The spear in Anlin's hands still didn't strike the all-life source cauldron. He had misgivings. When his shout sounded, desolate border's atmosphere became even more tense, because a great battle that might affect the great river of time was about to erupt. What do you think? The space between Yi Fan's brows shone, thick blood energy rushing out from the top of his head, illuminating the heavens, making even the great river of time in that space-time tremble. Anlin's pupils contracted, his expression becoming serious. Could it be that this person really was going to take action? Back up, Anlin shouted. ordering the endless army of millions and millions of creatures in the endless desert, his expression serious. Once the two clashed, then there would be disastrous results. Perhaps nothing would exist anymore. When people of different space-time clashed, that would destroy the original world's trajectory. Honglong. All life source energy flowed. The inside of the cauldron was like a cosmos, primal chaos surging, immortal energy roiling, releasing the most terrifying power. Yifan stood on the cauldron, his right arm moving. His fist shone, becoming more and more resplendent, slowly striking towards Anlin. Moo. In the endless desert, the golden-backed barbaric bull who had long fled far away was so scared its soul was leaving its body, shivering, speeding up its escape. At the same time, the foreign great army was in chaos, all of them backing up. Right now, Anlin also released the aura of an undying king, protecting the foreign creatures, as if he was worried that Yifan would suddenly act out. In Heaven Abyss, Yifan's fist smashed over from his own space-time, clearly about to pass through the space-time barrier. The golden war spear in Anlin's hands also rushed out, its target aimed straight at Yifan. The two individuals' attacks were both extremely slow, but the irregular scenes they produced truly shocked every single creature. Cracks appeared in Heaven Abyss. The 9 heavens, 10 earths, and the foreign realm sky dome began to produce fine cracks, extending into the distance. These two experts from different space-time didn't even truly fight, yet it already affected all living things in this world. Stop! Right when the atmosphere was tense, a faintly discernible vigorous voice resounded through desolate border. Then, another figure appeared in Heaven Abyss, standing at Anlin's side. The irregular scenes around him, including his aura, weren't weaker than Anlin's in the slightest. That's Shuchuo, Immortal King. Another king. My heavens, who would have thought that I would be able to see two kings at the same time? Sure enough, existences like kings still can't fight through the great river of time. Even Shuchuo, Immortal King, came out to stop them. The foreign realm's millions and millions of creatures looked at the figure that appeared in Heaven Abyss. They were first stunned, and then they knelt down piously, their faces similarly carrying respect. Is it another undying king? Is the foreign realms backing this terrifying? In our age where immortal kings have passed away, they actually still have undying kings overseeing them. Moreover, not just one. 2 undying kings. That stepping cauldron immortal king from a different space-time. Can he really stop them? Shuchuo, Immortal King's appearance made the expressions of the 9 heavens, 10 earths cultivators change greatly, all of them carrying a bit of worry as they looked at Yifan. Meng Tianzheng, Immortal Wang, and the other supreme beings' expressions were also ugly to the extreme. In Immortal Ancient Era, Shuchuo's reputation wasn't inferior to Anlin's in the slightest. Just like Anlin, Shuchuo's name was something that even in the 9 heavens, 10 earths ancient texts, there were bloody historical records. In Immortal Ancient Era, his name shook the world, establishing his reputation by stepping on the corpses of countless experts, shocking past and present, sweeping through the 9 heavens, 10 earths. There were records that he had previously killed an immortal king from the 9 heavens, 10 earths. Even though he joined hands with others in that battle, one could still see how terrifying his cultivation strength was. Chapter 466. Another one came? Forget about 2. Even if there are more, this heavenly emperor still doesn't fear them. In the other space-time, Yifan stood on the cauldron, his eyes sweeping over Anlin and Shuchuo's bodies, possessing unmatched might. A battle that crosses the great river of time. Do you want this world to collapse? Shuchuo released a cold snort. If you still don't leave, then don't blame the 2 of us for joining hands to wipe you out. When his ice-cold voice sounded, an explosive roar sounded in Heaven Abyss. This was Shuchuo's aura, endless killing intent erupting, exploding in Heaven Abyss, as if an unmatched monarch was roaring. It was to the extent where even the other space-time Yifan was in was affected, the universe exploding, the void releasing terrifying noises, as if malicious spirits were howling. Nothing more than an ant. It can be suppressed and killed. Yifan spoke these words, and then his hands held the great cauldron, smashing it towards Anlin and Shichuo. Do you really think this king is scared? Then I'll just destroy 2 space-times. Anlin seemed to have been angered, no longer holding back. The golden ancient spear in his hands stabbed out, this time facing the all-life source cauldron. Dang! The long drawn-out sound of metal colliding echoed through the 2 space-time barriers. The great river of time in the space-time Yifan was in shook, the stars in the river breaking apart, actually starting to crack apart. Wong wong. Under the rumbling sounds, the 9 heavens, 10 earths, the heavens of the other side began to shatter, the originally small cracks directly becoming gaping holes, as if doomsday was descending. No, don't. Life force is flowing away. Save me. In that instant, cries of alarm sounded from desolate border. At this moment, regardless of whether it was the 9 heavens, 10 earths, or the creatures of the other side, their figures all became more and more blurry, as if they were going to disappear into thin air. Little Yifan, you should stop. Separated by the great river of time, you aren't suited for battle. If you continue messing around, the 2 space-times really are going to collapse. Right at this time, a deep sigh sounded through desolate border, seeping into heaven abyss. This was an exceptionally calm voice, extremely abruptly sounding in this desolate border that was about to collapse. It spread through the endless desert, the 9 heavens, 10 earths, the other side, seeping into heaven abyss, and then into the other space-time. Hearing the voice, Yifan's body trembled, and he immediately stopped. With a wave of his sleeve, the cauldron that was spewing out chi of all creation disappeared along with the floating stars. The 9 heavens lightning that was surging around the cauldron also returned to his body. On the other hand, Anlin also put away the golden ancient spear, retrieving the terrifying energy he sent into the other time-space. Following that, the 2 dimensions buzzed. The river of time in Yifan's space-time gradually calmed down, and the stars in the river stopped shattering. The 9 heavens, 10 earths, and the other side's heavens began to close up. The giant hole that originally seemed like doomsday began to shrink, becoming fine cracks, and then it was completely repaired. At the same time, the hundreds of millions of cultivators that had faded away solidified once more. I'm fine now. My life force is no longer flowing away. The billions of living beings seemed to have realized that the calamity had disappeared, and their faces were filled with joy. It was as if they had just walked through the gates of hell. After the excitement passed, the millions and millions of creatures thought of something, all of them simultaneously casting their eyes towards the source of that voice, Imperial Pass walls. In Heaven Abyss, Anlin and Shichuo, the 2 great immortal kings' eyes similarly landed on Imperial Pass walls. As for Yifan, he bowed towards the city walls, his face full of respect. Little Yifan, if your master didn't say anything to stop you, were you really going to collapse the great river of time? On Imperial Pass walls, Chu Bei stood with his hands behind his back, calmly looking at Yifan. Yifan scratched his head in a bit of embarrassment. At this moment, he was no longer that unmatched heavenly Emperor Yi, but rather more like a child who made a mistake. Master, this disciple's original intention was just to scare the 2 of them, to force them to establish a blood oath. Who would have expected that they would rather collapse the great river of time than establish a vow? Forget it. Just leave the rest to your master. You just need to stay on the other side and watch. Chu Bei said indifferently. Master, wasn't your cultivation restricted? Yifan asked. Do you feel like your master can still just watch from the side? Could it be that I really have to watch as you 2 collapse the great river of time, collapse the 2 sides of space-time? Chu Bei looked at Yifan and said, Your master used a secret method, transferring over a bit of power. Even though my cultivation is still less than 1/10 of my peak, it is enough to deal with these 2 brats. When his voice that carried a smile sounded, Chu Bei on the city walls took a step out. In the blink of an eye, Chu Bei already arrived in Heaven Abyss. In that instant, his body shone. A giant axe wrapped in primal chaos appeared behind him. There were dozens to over 100 strange patterns engraved on the axe's handle. These patterns were the same in thickness, but the colors and shapes were all different, each having their own characteristics. The giant axe trembled lightly, releasing Wang sounds. Several thousand colors of different shades rippled out from above, from time to time changing into all types of shapes. An extremely dense wave of refreshing energy that made one feel relaxed and happy spread out from the axe blade, rippling through the desolate border battlefield. It produced a mysterious scene that left one astonished. The patterns on the axe's handle flickered. If one looked carefully, every single one of them contained endless stars, as if they formed a star domain of their own. This was the heaven-splitting axe, the genuine heaven-splitting axe. Apart from the heaven-splitting axe, beneath Chu Bei's feet, a giant Taiji diagram appeared, all types of immortal Tao symbols flickering about. At the center of the Taiji diagram was a blooming immortal Tao flower. Grand mist energy and all life source energy were incomparably condensed, about to turn into liquid. A golden disk rested above Chu Bei's head, the center of the disk surging with blue-green radiance. Within the radiance, one could vaguely see the worshipping scene of millions and millions of creatures from different worlds, their faces full of piety. The blue-green radiance came from their worship, unmatched faith force. Don't you all feel like the feeling this true immortal senior gives off seems to have changed? I also feel it, but I can't say what exactly changed. What did his previous words mean? He doesn't want his powerful disciple to take action, leaving the rest to him? Even though he is extremely strong, he is still a true immortal in the end. Right now, the ones he is facing are two undying kings from the other side. Can he really do it? No, since he is the master of an immortal king from a different space-time. How can he only be a true immortal? The 9 heavens, 10 earths cultivators snapped back to reality, their eyes locking onto Chu Bei's body. At the same time, their eyes carried bewilderment and worry. I actually can't sense his aura fluctuations anymore. While looking at Chu Bei's rear figure, Meng Tianzheng muttered to himself, a bit absent-minded. It wasn't just him. Immortal Wang, Zhao Haoyin, and the other supreme beings also revealed bewildered expressions. Previously, they could still sense Boss Chu's energy fluctuations. However, in that instant just now, the other party's aura fluctuations disappeared. So this is Great Ancestor? Yi Qingxian pulled Shi Hao's small white hand, muttering to herself, eyes carrying strong expectation. Chu Bei took a step out, directly leaving Imperial Pass just like that, arriving in Heaven Abyss. Regardless of whether it was the 9 heavens, 10 earths cultivators, or the foreign creatures, their eyes all focused on Chu Bei's body. At the same time, their faces were full of shock. In their eyes, Chu Bei seemed to have become even more ordinary. If he was placed in a great army, he might even be a small figure that couldn't be found. However, right now, the other party appeared in Heaven Abyss, looking at undying King Anlin and Shichuo, yet he didn't give off that type of strange feeling, as if they were standing at the same height to begin with. However, if one looked at him for a long time, they would discover that this Boss Chu's aura was incomparably fierce, his pupils piercing, releasing light like immortal swords, making it impossible for one to look at him directly. The symbols on the surface of his body swirled about, as if they were going to crush the world. Master. In a different time-space, Yifan walked on a cauldron, standing at the limits of the great river of time, cupping his fists towards Chu Bei. You've changed. Anlin gave Chu Bei a look, his expression serious, eyes releasing divine radiance. He spoke indifferently, giving this evaluation. Immortal King, Undying King, do you all feel like this is the end of cultivation? Chu Bei's voice was calm. Regardless of whether it is the past or the future, I, Anlin, am unmatched in this world. Anlin spoke, releasing unmatched might. Unmatched? If there really is an unmatched being, then how could there be an age of emperor collapse? From past until now, who dared say they were undefeated? Just how much do you understand about this world? Perhaps only when this one was at his peak would he dare declare himself undefeated. Even if it was this one at that time, he still needed to temper his unmatched body. Chu Bei stood with his hands behind his back, his words carrying a type of fierceness as well as a type of great changes. It was as if a monarch walked over from the distant past, witnessing the vicissitudes of life after reviving, questioning the heavens. What do you all amount to? In the end, Chu Bei indifferently gave Anlin and Shuchuo a look, releasing a cold snort, his voice carrying disdain. Arrogant. Who do you think you are? Anlin's eyes were cold and deep. I will suppress you with a raise of my hand. Chu Bei spoke word for word. A sonorous voice sounded from heaven abyss, resounding through the endless desert. Suppress Anlin. These words were spoken lightly from Chu Bei's mouth. The cultivators of the 9 heavens 10 earths in front of Imperial Pass first became quiet, dead silent. Then, their blood surged, expressions stirred up. On the other hand, the endless creatures of the other side also had expressions of anger. Someone who had just stepped into the immortal Dao domain not long ago actually said that he could suppress Anlin with a raise of his hand? These were undying kings, the highest level existences, their faith. Who dared look down on them? They touched upon the taboo. They had to be killed. Those who offend our king, die. Before Anlin could reply, the foreign undying was the first to release a cold shout. Great Dao immortal light surged around his body, symbols flickering about. His palm slapped out, directly pointing at Chu Bei. Great stars swirled about in his palm, irregular scenes appearing one after another. If not for Heaven Abyss stopping him before, he would have already attacked the other party. How could he allow the other party to act like this, offend an undying king like this? This really was daring to the extreme. The other party's arrogance should be skinned alive, his bones pulled out, his soul suppressed into the eye of the sea of bitterness. Even though he also sensed Chu Bei's changes, in his opinion, the other party definitely didn't reach the king level. Chu Bei swept his eyes over the foreign undying. He shook his head, releasing a type of aura that devoured mountains and rivers, as if he was the sole sovereign of the heavens above and earth below. If he didn't do it, who else could? His head of black hair fluttered about, divine eyes like lightning, so dazzling that it was hard to look him in the eyes, making one tremble in fear. Honglong. The stellar domain in Chu Bei's eyes swirled in reverse, his eyes narrowing. In that instant, it was as if the heavens collapsed and earth split apart, the skies splitting apart, the great desert caving in. That gaze was even more terrifying than the great void crack. Chi. Anlin took action, the golden ancient spear lightly moving, separating the sky, wishing to stop this beam of light, but it was too late. This beam of light landed on the foreign undying's body. The giant palm he slapped out disappearing without a trace before entering Heaven Abyss. As for his body, it was instantly cut in half, the scene extremely terrifying. As soon as a miserable scream sounded from his mouth, the two halves of his body and primordial spirit turned into a blast of bloody mist. Immortal light scattered. The foreign undying died. Undying Great One died. This is definitely impossible. That is but an unmatched existence who stepped into the immortal Dao domain. It was actually, how could he be killed so easily? It was just a beam of light. Could it be that he also stepped into the king realm? While looking at the bloody mist that scattered in the sky dome above, the bodies of millions and millions of foreign creatures suddenly trembled. Their eyes all returned to Chu Bei's body, full of alarm and fear. They didn't dare imagine that an undying being would actually be killed by a beam of light. This was just too terrifying. When they looked at the soldiers of the 9 heavens 10 earths, their expressions were the exact opposite. After being stunned for a moment, they reacted, starting to cheer loudly. Their expressions stirred up. The mysterious senior who stood on their side was actually already powerful to the point where a strand of light could kill a foreign undying being. The foreign undying being, this was an unmatched existence equivalent to a true immortal, an undying being who had lived from immortal ancient until now. In the annals of history, he had a brilliant reputation. Is this Boss Chu's true strength? Or perhaps this is just a corner of his strength? The path of cultivation, just what kind of cultivation realm is at the end? Taodai King, Old Celestial, Immortal Palace Master, and the other self-release realm cultivators looked at each other in dismay. Along the way, The shock this boss Chu brought them really was too great. Meng Tianzheng, Immortal Wang, Zhao Haoyin, and the other supreme beings stared blankly at that figure in heaven abyss, their expressions a bit absent-minded. This was especially the case with the latter two, their expressions even more so full of strangeness. Not long ago, they actually fought against the other party, to the extent where they even spoke vicious words. Now, it seemed like that was just a joke. Chapter 467. Are you not attaching any importance to this king? Anlin spoke up, his tone calm. Even now, even when he saw the foreign undying being killed, he didn't show the slightest bit of emotion. You do not have the qualifications. When the calm voice sounded, Chu Bei raised a single hand. The heaven-opening axe behind him shook, thick divine radiance rushing into the heavens from the axe blade, as if a volcano erupted with magma, illuminating heaven abyss, the power shaking up the 9 heavens, 10 earths, and the foreign realm. Honglong. A sky-shocking noise sounded. The endless patterns on the axe handle released radiance at the same time, the universe trembling. The endless radiance merged with the grand mist energy and all life source energy below his feet, turning into a blade radiance, a Tao-severing blade. Qi. That blade hacked through heaven abyss natural laws, splitting apart the great Tao patterns, hacking outwards, tearing through all obstructions. Kill. At the same time, an explosive roar sounded from the other side of heaven abyss. This was Anlin's shout. He erupted with endless killing intent, erupting with noise, vaguely like the roar of an unmatched monarch. Heaven abyss was blasted apart, the void releasing terrifying noises, as if malicious spirits were howling. Anlin gripped the spear with both hands, fiercely facing that blade. King. He is actually holding the spear with both hands. The foreign realm's creatures looked at heaven abyss, especially the older supreme beings, their faces immediately revealing expressions of shock. Is that person from the 9 heavens, 10 earths really already strong to this degree? Just what kind of background does he have? Why are there no records related to him in the ancient texts? The last time King held the spear with both hands was in immortal ancient era. At that time, his opponent was an immortal king. When they saw the battle in heaven abyss, the foreign realm's creatures were shocked, looking at heaven abyss in disbelief. Anlin was an undying king, the faith of millions and millions of foreign creatures, yet now, he was forced to hold the spear with both hands. Ever since the battle of immortal ancient, when had Anlin ever been this serious? Before, even when the scarlet-eyed elder who was number 1 under immortal kings pressed down with an immortal city, his expression didn't change at all. However now, his face was grave and stern. It was clear that Anlin attached great importance to that person from the 9 heavens, 10 earths. This was a true great confrontation, unprecedented and unmatched. Dang! Metal trembling noises, blade and spear colliding. At the point of collision, white ripples spread out in heaven abyss. Resplendent light dazzled, erupting with ocean-like energy fluctuations. The interweaving divine radiance even drowned heaven abyss all of a sudden, terrifying to the extreme, making one's soul tremble. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Heaven abyss shook violently. This abyss that had existed since the age of Emperor Collapse seemed like it was about to collapse. Fortunately, just as it was on the verge of collapse, black blood flowed out of the black hole above. This blood came from an unknown place and flowed along the periphery of heaven abyss, as if strengthening it once again. However, despite this being the case, the power of Chu Bei and Anlin's collision still had wisps of aura that penetrated heaven abyss, spreading outwards. In an instant, the boundless army of a myriad of living beings in the boundless desert fell weakly to the ground with a thump, and they trembled with fear. They were restrained by the supreme pressure, and they were simply on the verge of exploding. Even peak 9 heavens supremes like Meng Tianzheng and Wang Changsheng were suppressed, unable to use their god force. This was still the result of heaven abyss being strengthened by that mysterious black blood. Otherwise, just the shockwaves from the collision of the 2 great immortal king experts were enough to destroy all of the cultivators in the boundless desert. Inside heaven abyss, Shuchuo Immortal King released a decree towards the foreign heavens. The decree scattered down endless rain of light, as if it was protecting the foreign great army. The other space-time Yifan stood on the all-life source energy cauldron, displaying unmatched divine abilities through the great river of time, also producing a barrier of energy light above the 9 heavens 10 earths. Dang! Inside Heaven Abyss, the sound of metal colliding lingered in spirals. The unmatched immortal Tao aura of the confrontation of two powerful individuals covered heaven and earth. When the immortal radiance at the point of collision completely scattered, the 9 heavens 10 earths and the foreign cultivators all woke up from their shivering. How is this possible? My eyes must be playing tricks on me. The eyes of millions and millions of creatures were focused on the battlefield. When they saw the scene clearly, they were first stunned, and then their pupils suddenly contracted. This was especially the case for the foreign creatures, their faces even more so filled with disbelief, carrying alarm and fear. On the battlefield, that golden ancient spear wrapped in immortal radiance actually had a gap appear on one side of the spearhead. There was even a fine crack that extended into the distance by the edges of the gap. Undying King Anlin's Tao proving weapon was actually damaged. It broke in the previous collision. In immortal ancient great era, this spear pierced through one of the vicious Ten's heavenly horned ants, killing countless half-immortal kings. Even in an intense battle against an immortal king, it still released unmatched immortal might, not suffering any damage. However, right now, it was precisely this type of unmatched immortal weapon that slaughtered its way through immortal ancient great era that had a gap produced from the collision just now. Just how terrifying of a thing was this? The foreign creatures were stupefied, inwardly shocked to the extreme. Every single one of them widened their eyes, finding it hard to accept the fact that the golden ancient spear was damaged. It wasn't just these foreign creatures. Even the immortal King Shuchuo's eyes flashed with a bit of shock. Even though the 9 heavens 10 earths immortal king's Tao severing blade already disappeared, turning into a rain of light, that wasn't a real thing in the end, but rather the giant axe behind him. This terrifying blade could still be regenerated. In reality, this really was the case. The heaven-splitting axe behind Chu Bei trembled, a Tao-severing blade that was exactly the same as before appearing, its aura even becoming more and more terrifying. Anlin's weapon was damaged. In the exchange just now, Senior Chu seized the advantage. It seems like Senior Chu really has the strength to fight against Anlin. In front of Imperial Pass, the 9 heavens 10 earth soldiers were in a celebratory mood, their cries of alarm carrying excitement. In Heaven Abyss battlefield, Anlin was expressionless. Even though his Tao weapon was damaged, there was still no anger on his face, instead becoming more and more calm. His eyes were deep like a sea as he stared at Chu Bei, as if he wanted to see through his soul. "Where exactly did you come from?" Shuchuo asked from the side. He was surrounded by divine radiance, incomparably hazy, intimidating all creatures of this world. He was confused. Why did this person of unknown origins instantly possess such strength, directly entering the immortal king realm from the true immortal realm? Kill him, carefully study him, and you will naturally understand. Anlin spoke again. At this time, the golden spear in his hand already recovered on its own, golden light flowing, extracting essence gold energy from Heaven Abyss. This was a supreme divine ability. It reforged the spear, becoming even more resplendent, golden light covering the sky, dazzling to the extreme. An exceptional immortal king weapon, unmatched in this world. "Study this great one?" Chu Bei laughed, his eyes swirling, stellar streams flowing within. In the next moment, a fierce aura erupted from his body, as if an unmatched immortal sword was unsheathed, oppressing one's soul. A beam of light shot out from his eyes, as if all creatures of this world ascended to immortality, a boundless rain of light condensing into an arrow, crushing the heavens as it shot towards Anlin. This was merely the light in his eyes, shocking to the extreme. Anlin's expression didn't change, his expression becoming increasingly cold, his eyes like a deep starry sky, within them the scene of the heavens being destroyed, but also the grand scene of all things reviving. He fiercely shook the golden ancient spear, facing that arrow. Hung long. The arrow turned into a rain of light, dissipating. Anlin held the golden ancient spear, taking half a step back. There is always a heaven beyond the heavens, a person beyond a person. Even if you become an immortal emperor, you still need to know that there is still a heaven above the heavens. Chu Bei's words were spoken under his fierce aura, pressuring one's primordial spirit. He was arrogant and aloof, as if he was facing an ordinary creature, casually speaking. At this moment, Chu Bei's aura seemed to have changed once again. The immortal radiance around his body not only illuminated heaven abyss, it even illuminated the 9 heavens, 10 earths, and the heavens of the other side. Erupting with an exceptional aura, possessing a great power that was unmatched since the ancient times. He floated in the void of heaven abyss, not moving. However, above his head, 9 little figures appeared, as if he had 9 primordial spirits. In the hands of these 9 little figures, there was a golden disc, a small heaven-splitting axe floating at the center of each disc, deliberately mystifying things. Anlin frowned, berating, his expression becoming increasingly cold. His eyes were like deep starry skies. Within them were scenes of the heavens being destroyed, but also scenes of all things reviving. This time, he still held the golden ancient spear with both hands, but this time, he changed his brandishing motion, as if he had merged with heaven abyss. He fiercely struck out with the golden spear, brandishing it towards Chu Bei. Rumble. Under the gazes of millions of soldiers, Anlin stabbed the golden ancient spear towards Chu Bei in the heaven abyss battlefield, the power stronger than the previous 2 times. As for Chu Bei, he still didn't dodge, but the 9 little figures above his head quickly merged together, becoming one little figure, the surface of its body releasing 9 types of radiance. In the rumbling sound, that little figure replaced Chu Bei to face Anlin. Boom! The palm-sized 9-colored little figure brandished the heaven-splitting axe, heaven abyss rumbling. Dang! Although the axe was small, its surface derived the terrifying power of 9 different laws. The power of fire, the power of wood, the power of metal, the power of lightning, the power of water, the power of earth. 9 different powers intertwined and blocked the tip of the ancient golden spear. Meanwhile, the 9-colored little figure continued to hack down with the axe in its hand, divine and invincible. The power of the axe, 9 types of primitive laws interweaved, accompanied by primal chaos, thousands of avatars alternating, having the power to split heaven and earth apart. No matter who you are, I, Anlin, am not afraid. Only I, Anlin, am supreme in this world. Anlin roared, his body covered in symbols, erupting with power that suppressed heaven and earth, fully releasing the matchless divine might of an immortal king, blocking that 9-colored little figure. Ignorant child. That palm-sized 9-colored little figure actually responded to Anlin. As the disdainful voice fell, the 9-colored little figure waved its right hand, and with a rumble, the golden disc that was originally behind Chu Bei actually rapidly shrank, in the end flying into its hand, as if it had transformed into a weapon that could rival the heaven-splitting axe, surging with chaotic mist, flickering with brilliance. Rumble. The sound of the great Tao filled the air, and avatars appeared above the 9-colored little figure's head. At this moment, the 9-colored little figure held the heaven-splitting axe in one hand and the golden disc in the other. Although they were both very charming, they each released a supreme aura that could swallow the world. Looking down on the long river of history, wanting to ask the world who could compete with it. Suppress. 2 light syllables came out of the 9-colored little figure's mouth. In an instant, the Taiji diagram under Chu Bei's feet spun. Primordial energy and all things source energy turned into a surging river, surging like the Milky Way of the 9 heavens, converging on the 9-colored little figure's heaven-splitting axe and golden disc. Whoosh! The 9-colored little figure used the 2 divine weapons as weapons to whip Anlin at the same time. In an instant, heaven abyss shook, the black blood seeping out of the black hole madly burning, as if blocking the power released by the heaven-splitting axe and golden disc. In the end, Countless black blood flowed out of the black hole, barely stabilizing heaven abyss that was about to collapse. At this moment, Anlin's expression changed greatly, his pupils constricting. Not only him, but Shuchuo, who was watching from the side, also had a change in expression, a hint of seriousness between his brows. Pung. The nine-colored little figure held the heaven-splitting axe, tearing through all illusions, directly hacking down on Anlin's body. A low rumbling noise sounded. Anlin was sent flying, his body continuously backing up. During this process, it wasn't that Anlin didn't put up any defenses, but rather that the defensive light he produced was almost instantly destroyed by the heaven-splitting axe. Impossible! How could great ancestor Anlin be defeated? While looking at Anlin, who was sent flying, in the other side's direction, millions and millions of creatures were shaken, great waves surging in their minds, every single one of their spines going cold. The undying king who had never tasted defeat since a mortal ancient great era, the high and mighty ruler of the world, the faith of all clans, was actually sent flying by a little figure just now. It wasn't just the foreign creatures. The 9 heavens 10 earth soldiers were also stunned. They were confused. What was going on with that 9-colored little figure? It could actually force back an undying king. However, they were only confused for an instant, and then they began to shout excitedly. They couldn't understand the process, so they could only look at the result. At the very least, from what they could see, that boss Chu who stood on their side seized the advantage. On Imperial Pass walls, Yi Qingxian looked at Chu Bei with an expression of worship. This was precisely her great ancestor, an unmatched existence who could break through the natural laws of time, wander through different eras as he pleased. No one knew his origins, no one knowing his peak strength. However, despite this being the case, under the other party's cultivation suppression, he still forced back an undying king without using his true body. As for Sure Hao, his eyes long released golden light, his eyes completely filled with Chu Bei's figure. In the other time-space, Yi Fan's expression was serious, as if he was observing Chu Bei's Tao, his brows relaxing from time to time, furrowing from time to time. Then, he revealed an expression of sudden enlightenment, as if he was comprehending the Tao, learning. Shuchuo's body suddenly trembled, his eyes revealing an expression of horror. If others could see his expression, they would discover that it was extremely strange, carrying astonishment and shock. How could it be like this? Is this little fella a primordial spirit? Why does he have such a powerful primordial spirit? Anlin stabilized his body, muttering to himself. 2 questions immediately popped up. However, before Chu Bei could dispel his doubts, that 9-colored little figure already appeared in front of him again, the heaven-opening axe in its hands, just like before, hacking towards him. Apart from the heaven-opening axe, there was also a golden disc that similarly carried unmatched divine might, also smashing towards him. I, Anlin, am unmatched in this world. Throughout all of history, no one can suppress me. Anlin roared out, the heavens collapsing. With a wave of his hand, he recalled the golden ancient spear that was tangled with the power of 5 great natural laws. Chapter 468. Dong. In Heaven Abyss Battlefield, the heaven-opening axe was the first to hack down, striking Anlin's golden ancient spear, instantly sending the latter's spearhead in another direction. When he saw this, Anlin's body trembled, staggering backwards. However, before he could withdraw that far, the 9-colored little figure followed like a shadow, the golden disc in its hands striking his body again. This time, the power was even more ferocious. The golden disc released sinister radiance, the tens of thousands of irregular seen void images covering heaven and earth, pouring into Anlin's body. Then, with a pung noise, it exploded together with Anlin. Why is it like this? Great ancestor Anlin was actually blasted apart. Didn't the 9 heavens 10 earths immortal kings all die in immortal ancient? Why is there still someone who can injure our king? While looking at the flesh and blood in heaven abyss, the endless foreign creatures were simply about to go crazy. Their faith was actually directly blasted apart by a little figure. Even though this flesh and blood quickly reassembled into Anlin's appearance, the scene from before really did happen. Anlin seemed to have been completely angered, his hair flying upwards, veins popping on his face, his roar full of strong killing intent. Pointless struggle. That nine-colored little figure didn't seem to fear the crazed Anlin at all, striking over with the heaven-opening axe and golden disc again. Anlin shouted, using the golden ancient spear to block. However, a similar scene happened again. No matter how he operated the immortal Tao force within his body, he still couldn't change the outcome of the ancient spear being sent flying. In the end, he could only watch as the heaven-opening axe and golden disc alternately struck over. Pong! Anlin flew out, his body exploding again, and then reassembling. Who exactly are you? Anlin roared out. He was an immortal king, someone who could overlook endless time, overlook all under the sky, yet now, he encountered great trouble. This nine-colored little figure's attack contained great Tao force, forcefully suppressing him, making it extremely strenuous for him to fight back. This type of feeling of helplessness was something he had never felt even during Immortal Ancient's great battle. At this moment, regardless of whether it was the 9 heavens, 10 earths, or the foreign realm, it was completely silent, an expanse of deathly stillness. All of the creatures and cultivators were shocked, looking at heaven abyss in a daze, not saying a word, only horror remaining on their faces. Even those at the peak of Supreme being level like Ming Tianzheng and Immortal Wang were stupefied, their mouths wide open in shock, unable to close. In heaven abyss, the foreign undying King Anlin was struck by that 9-colored little figure, his body exploding, reforming, and then exploding again and again, this cycle repeating itself. In that instant, the only things left in desolate border were the rhythmic, muffled explosions from heaven abyss, as well as Anlin's angry roars of unwillingness. I, Anlan, am immortal. You can't kill me. Anlan's body reformed, glaring at Chu Bei in the distance. A law decree appeared in his hand. He spat out a mouthful of blood on the law decree, and the law decree burned with blue flames. Rumble, suddenly, a pitch-black gap appeared above heaven abyss. The gap was accompanied by lightning. Then, under everyone's gaze, a pure black shield tablet appeared. That's the Blackstone Immortal King's shield tablet. There were foreign supreme beings who recognized that pure black shield monument, unable to help but cry out in alarm. Has he really already been forced to this extent? Shuchuo Immortal King gave the 9-colored little figure a look, and then his eyes landed on Anlin's body, muttering to himself. Blackstone Immortal King was just like them, previously also one of the foreign unmatched Immortal Kings. However, he died in Immortal Ancient's great battle. Before his death, he entrusted his Tao verification artifact to Anlin. In terms of defensive power, this black stone shield tablet was fully deserving of being number 1 among Immortal King artifacts. However, because Anlin was prideful enough, even in Immortal Ancient's battle, he never used this shield tablet. But now, he had summoned the shield steel. It was clear that when facing this 9-colored little figure, he already reached a point where he was at his wit's end. Dang! The 9-colored little figure lashed out again. Anlin didn't hesitate to hold a shield in one hand and a spear in the other, blocking it at the same time. This time, Anlin only backed up, his body not exploding. Dang! 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 The 9-colored little figure pressed forward, one hand holding the heaven-splitting axe, the other holding the golden disc, continuously striking out several times. However, because of the black stone shield tablet's defense, it was difficult for him to blast Anlin apart again. Our king has received it. With Blackstone Immortal King's shield tablet, Ancestor Anlin can forcibly resist that little figure's attacks. The situation in the Heaven Abyss battlefield took a turn for the better. The gloominess on the faces of the foreign creatures swept away. However, just as the corners of their mouths rose, the situation changed again. The mysterious person who was originally standing in the distance suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already close to the 9-colored little figure. Boom! The nine-colored little figure and Chu Bei released nine-colored light at the same time. Then, under everyone's gazes, the nine-colored little figure entered Chu Bei's forehead, returning, fusing together. In an instant, Chu Bei's aura rose, possessing an unrivaled aura of supremacy in the universe. Chu Bei personally brandished his axe, simple and direct. With a swing of the axe, many great stars moved, carrying a majestic pressure, suppressing Anlin. Kill! Anlin's expression was serious. As he shouted, he first used the black stone shield tablet to block, and then stabbed out with the golden ancient spear, aiming directly at Chu Bei's chest. Pacha! Chu Bei's axe hacked down on the black stone shield tablet. At first, it was a deadlock for about 3 seconds. Then, in the dead silence, a crisp, shattering sound suddenly rang out. In the next moment, the shield tablet exploded, and the heaven-splitting axe in Chu Bei's hand continued to move forward, chopping down on Anlin's chest. Pucci! This axe split open Anlin's chest, bringing with it golden blood. Unlike before when his body exploded, Anlin actually let out a painful roar at this moment. The roar was filled with killing intent, as if he was suffering an indescribable pain. This was inconceivable. A king who stood at the peak of the immortal Tao actually let out a painful scream. It was unbelievable. Amidst the roar, Anlin swept the spear horizontally, immediately pulling away from Chu Bei. Looking at his chest that had been split open, Anlin tried to use his immortal power to repair it. However, what made his heart palpitate was that the other party's immortal power was preventing him from repairing the wound. The black stone shield tablet actually shattered. That is but the world's most powerful defensive artifact, yet it was actually directly hacked apart by that fella's axe. Could it be that he really has already surpassed old ancestor Anlin? If this really is the case, who else in this world can be his opponent? While looking at the floating rubble in heaven abyss, the endless foreign creatures were endlessly alarmed, their eyes full of fear. Honglong! Heaven abyss shook intensely. Chu Bei brandished the heaven-splitting axe again, hacking down on Anlin, domineering to the extreme. With a raise of his hand, it was as if he was the ruler of a mortal domain, casually suppressing his subjects, no one able to resist him. When one looked over, Chu Bei's body seemed to have become one with the radiance released by the heaven-splitting axe. When the axe hacked down, it was majestic, locking Anlin in place, binding him. This second axe hacked down on Anlin's shoulder, immediately severing his right arm. The third hacked down on Anlin's head, blasting half of his head into mincemeat. Chu Bei hacked down again and again. Anlin screamed miserably, the areas that were shattered unable to heal. This was the first time in several hundred years that he felt fear, as if he sensed the arrival of death. Blood sacrifice. Finally, when Chu Bei's 10th fist descended, Anlin seemed to have made some type of decision, an unwilling great roar resounding through the heavens. Then, only to see his flesh that was blasted apart by Chu Bei completely ignite, and then struggle free from Chu Bei's binding power, recombining once more. Shuchuo, could it be that you're just going to watch from the side like this? If I am killed, do you think he will let you go? Anlin's entire body was covered in origin essence blood, wrapped within raging white flames. He was squeezing out his life force. Even if he won this battle, he would sleep for at least 1,000,000 years. When he heard Anlin's words, Shuchuo gave the other space-time Yifan a look, the spear in his hands trembling. Ever since he sensed that Anlin was at a disadvantage, he wanted to take action, but that fella's aura was always locked onto him. As long as he took action, the other party would definitely take action as well. This was why he was always watching from the side. But now, with the current situation, he had no choice but to help Anlin. Otherwise, Anlin might really die in this heaven abyss. Master, this time, let disciple fight alongside you. In the other space-time, above the long river of time, Yifan stood on the myriad chi cauldron, the 9 heavens lightning surging behind him, looking ready to take action. Little Yezi, do you not believe in Master's strength? Chu Bei looked at Yifan with a smile. Are you worried that Master will be at a disadvantage under their combined strength? Even if the two of them attack together, what does Master have to fear? As for you, you should continue to stay there and watch. As his smiling voice fell, Chu Bei's body suddenly swayed, erupting with 9 colors, and then his body split into 9. In the next instant, 9 identical Chu Bei surrounded Anlin and Shuchuo in a ring shape. 5 identical but different Chu seniors. As expected, what we saw at the beginning was not an illusion. He can really split into 9 people. All of the creatures in Desolate Border stared at Heaven Abyss with stupefied expressions. They were a bit stunned. How did this boss Chu suddenly become 9? Moreover, the auras they gave off were all different. In Heaven Abyss, the 9 figures stood in different directions, surrounding Anlin and Shuchuo in a ring shape. Honglong. The 9 Chu Bei moved at the same time, making the same movements, one hand holding the heaven-splitting axe, the other holding the golden disc, lashing out from different directions. As the 9 figures moved, Heaven Abyss swayed and trembled as a result. Kill. Anlin and Shuchuo exchanged a look, their expressions serious, releasing their most powerful attacks at the same time. Anlin swept out with the golden ancient spear. Shuchuo stabbed forward, releasing the most dazzling radiance. Regardless of whether it was Anlin or Shuchuo, they were both extremely strong, peak experts, overlooking endless time, looking down on the world. However, the instant they exchanged blows with the 5 Chu Bei, their expressions changed at the same time, becoming even more serious and overcast. These 9 Chu Bei, even though their auras were different, none of them were weaker than them, to the extent where they were even above them. As soon as the battle began, Anlin and Shuchuo were already suppressed by the 9 Chu Bei, continuously forced back. Chapter 469. Great Ancestor Anlin and Great Ancestor Shuchuo still lost even after working together. Not even 2 great ancestors working together can win. When they saw the situation in Heaven Abyss battlefield, the pupils of millions and millions of foreign creatures contracted, carrying fear within their shock. In Heaven Abyss, the 9 figures worked together. Regardless of whether it was the frequency or power of their attacks, they were completely the same. Peng. Anlin was attacked from all sides by 4 figures. Even though his entire body's essence blood burned, he was still in a dangerous situation. He flew out, his arms exploding. Shuchuo was attacked from all sides by 5 figures. One of them focused on the spear in his hands, while the other 4 attacked from the sides, smashing into his shoulders and back, making him stagger about. A moment later, a wisp of dark red color appeared at the corners of his lips. The fierce attacks of experts at the same level were something not even he could endure. This was a battle between immortal Dao domain kings. It was already a world-shaking struggle from the very start. In that instant, blood radiance splashed out. Are these Senior Chu's methods? Terrifyingly powerful. In the 9 heavens 10 earths, countless cultivators cried out in alarm, their faces carrying excitement. The unmatched Anlin and Shuchuo were forcibly suppressed by someone today, their undefeated legend shattered. The foreign creatures trembled, their eyes carrying worry. Honglong. In Heaven Abyss, the 9 Chu Bei slaughtered their way forward together, unstoppable. Anlin and Shuchuo continuously backed up. Even though they were immortal kings, when facing opponents of the same level, or even a bit stronger than them, this type of killing situation was still extremely passive. What was even more hateful was that, in terms of numbers, the other party still had the advantage. Under rumbling noises, the 9 Chu Bei erupted with unmatched power, beating Anlin and Shuchuo until they continuously coughed out blood. With a Qi-La noise, a Chu Bei hacked apart Anlin's spear, piercing through his chest. Another rumbling noise sounded. Another Chu Bei got close to Shuchuo's back, an axe hacking apart his back, revealing deep white bones. Retreat. Anlin and Shuchuo's mouths were filled with golden blood, a bit of restraining fear appearing in their eyes, carrying alarm and fear. They found it hard to believe that there was actually such a terrifying existence in this world. However, reality was right before their eyes. If they continued fighting, they might really die in this Heaven Abyss. The 9 individuals that this mysterious person produced, every single one of them were stronger than them. That type of strange immortal force was too terrifying. Their bodies exploded again and again. Even those as powerful as them couldn't take it. Dong. Anlin and Shuchuo were struck again. Their bodies suffered heavy blows, and their bodies were sent flying. They coughed out large mouthfuls of blood, seriously injured. Everyone was stunned. Chu Bei displayed his might. His 9 incarnations chased after Anlin and Shuchuo, shocking everyone. In that instant, the boundless, desolate border actually became quiet, dead silent. This was too impactful. Those were 2 undying kings, yet today, their entire bodies were dripping with blood, seriously injured, chased by others, in extremely sorry states. Do you think you can leave? A calm voice rang out from Heaven Abyss. In the next moment, under the gazes of billions of people, the 9 figures in Heaven Abyss actually stopped chasing Anlan and Shuchuo. They gathered together and clenched their fists at the same time, unleashing a dazzling beam of light towards the sky. 9 different colored beams of light intertwined together, and with a loud boom, the strange symbol of wand flashed, followed by the sound of the immortal Tao. A golden disc covered in runes emerged from within. Under the combined power of the 9 Chu Bais, the golden disc let out a trembling sound, and ripples spread out from it. In that instant, Heaven Abyss rumbled, shaking intensely like never before. It was to the extent where even that black hole was affected, the black blood flowing within actually showing signs of solidifying. Dang! Ripples swept out. Anlin and Shuchuo's bodies suddenly trembled. In that instant, their pupils rapidly contracted. They turned around to look at the 9 Chu Bei that were gathered together, fear appearing in their eyes. This was a type of fear that came from the bottom of their hearts. They were undying kings, unmatched existences and immortal ancient. They looked down on the 9 heavens, 10 earths, all creatures like ants. After tens of millions of years, right now, they finally felt a type of emotion called uneasiness. They looked at the golden disc above the heads of the 9 Chu Bei in horror, their bodies actually starting to mysteriously tremble. There was a wave of power they had never come into contact with, one that transcended above them, difficult to resist. Under this wave of power, even if it was them, they were still restricted, the circulation of a mortal force within their bodies becoming incomparably slow. I, Anlin, do not fear anyone, Anlin roared out, his roar shaking up desolate border, forcefully forcing himself to remain calm. At the same time, the essence blood within his body burned crazily, squeezing out his life force to struggle free from the golden disc's restrictions. Dong! However, in the end, before Anlin could struggle free, a streak of divine multicolored light rushed out from the golden disc. With a pung noise, Anlin's body exploded. Collect! An indifferent syllable sounded from Chu Bei's mouth. Then, unmatched divine chains of order surged from the golden disc, dragging Anlin's body that was currently slowly reassembling into the bowl. Chi. Under the gazes of millions and millions of creatures, Anlin's exploded body was dragged into the golden disc by the divine chains of order. Immediately afterwards, a strange grinding noise sounded by everyone's ears, as if it was a type of chewing sound. Let me out. What exactly are you? Anlin's miserable screams of pain sounded from the golden disc, his voice carrying fear, as if he was currently suffering an irresistible torment. This was pain even undying kings found hard to endure. Millions and millions of creatures sucked in a cold breath of air, looking at the giant golden bowl in Heaven Abyss in fear, all of them shivering. The golden disc was shining, especially at the center of the disc, even more so surging with 9-colored immortal light. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. After a few breaths of time, Anlin's miserable screams disappeared without a trace. What disappeared along with them was that terrifying chewing sound. How is this possible? Old Ancestor Anlin's body is gone, completely gone. Could it be that Old Ancestor has already fallen? What kind of background does that disc have? Why did I just see a mouth at the center of that disc? Was it just my imagination? Millions and millions of foreign creatures fell onto the ground, their trembling voices carrying heart palpitations. Just now, their faith, their king, was seized by that golden disk, his life or death unknown. Scarlet King, a great enemy is attacking. Wake up, save me. Within heaven abyss, Shuchuo stared straight at the golden disk, eyes carrying fear. Anlin died. He couldn't sense Anlin's aura anymore. While in alarm, he condensed all of his immortal force, a streak of multicolored light flying out from between his brows, entering the depths of the foreign realm along with his vigorous voice. Hong. Immediately afterwards, a sky-shocking noise sounded from the depths of the foreign realm. A wave of majestic aura pervaded the air, producing heaven and earth irregular scenes. In the depths of the foreign realm, only a giant figure appeared, opening its eyes high up in the sky, as if a terrifying creature woke up from a deep slumber. He looked towards heaven abyss, a giant hand reaching over, a black river surging in his palm. However, upon closer inspection, there were actually millions of stars floating within the river. Dang! The golden disk trembled, a ripple shooting out, facing the giant hand that reached over from the depths of the foreign realm. The two were in a deadlock, all things in this world frozen in place. Those this great one wishes to kill, no one can stop them. Inside heaven abyss, the 9 figures merged into one Chu Bei again. After giving the figure that woke up in the depths of the foreign realm a look, his eyes locked onto Shuchuo's body. Collect? When this word sounded, divine chains of order surged from the golden disk again, instantly piercing through Shuchuo's body, firmly wrapping around him. Scarlet King, save me. Shuchuo's eyes were filled with alarm. He didn't move, gathering all of his immortal force to release a vigorous voice, transmitting it into the depths of the foreign realm. Roar! A great roar sounded from the depths of the foreign realm. Another giant palm slapped over, overlaying the previous giant palm. Dang! When it looked like the ripples released by the golden disk were about to shatter, another layer of ripples overlaid. The two were in a deadlock again. When they looked at Shuchuo again, he was already dragged into the disk by the divine chains of order amidst his alarmed cries. Kacha! Kacha! Similar chewing sounds sounded again. What accompanied this was Shuchuo's miserable howls of pain. This scene was incomparably similar. All of you look, it appeared again. That giant mouth at the center of the disk. It's not an illusion. This is a disk that can eat people. A disk that can even devour undying kings. Is old ancestor Shuchuo going to follow in old ancestor Anlin's footsteps? How could such a terrifying fella appear in the 9 heavens 10 earths? Undying kings are taking action. Death. The foreign realm's millions and millions of creatures stared blankly at the golden disk in heaven abyss, watching as that giant mouth continuously nibbled at Shuchuo, the strange chewing sounds echoing by their ears, all of them feeling great fear. Kill. The instant Shuchuo's miserable cries disappeared, that figure in the depths of the foreign realm was completely angered, killing intent surging like a river, engulfing heaven abyss. At the same time, a wide silver blade moved through the void, directly appearing in heaven abyss, carrying a blazing rain of light as it hacked towards Chu Bei. The power of this blade seemed to be able to break through space-time barriers. Even Yi Fan, who was watching from the other space-time, couldn't help but frown. This one's time is already up, or else I will definitely cut you down. An indifferent voice drifted out from heaven abyss, transmitting all the way into the depths of the foreign realm. Then, with a dang metal ringing noise, Chu Bei recalled the golden disk, brandishing the heaven-splitting axe, facing that wide silver blade, sending it flying back into the hands of that figure in the depths of the foreign realm. Break for me. After sending the wide silver blade flying, Chu Bei stepped on the golden disk, the returning heaven-splitting axe lightly trembling behind him, arriving in front of the black hole at the very top of heaven abyss. Following a roar, the golden disk and heaven-splitting axe smashed forward at the same time. Hung long. A great noise sounded, the black hole exploding. The black blood inside carried red natural law order, turning into a waterfall, and then it turned into a blood-colored sea, vast and mighty as it poured down. In that instant, the originally hazy heaven abyss became a sea of natural laws, divine light of order pervading the air. Not good. Heaven abyss is collapsing. While looking at the changed heaven abyss, the endless foreign creatures snapped out of their fear of Anlin and Shuchuo being killed, crying out one after another. Heaven abyss collapsed, the two worlds heaven and earth shaking, completely separated. This scene was too shocking. Great stars exploded one after another like firecrackers, the collapsing areas exploding, that wave of energy leaving everyone horrified. That immortal city previously controlled by desolate borders 7 kings flew out, breaking apart in the sea of natural laws, turning into fragments and scattering. It's over. Heaven abyss dam burst, turning into a sea of primordial natural laws. We can't make it through. I fear that it won't be possible for at least 1,000,000 years. Among the foreign creatures, several powerful supreme beings gazed at the collapsing heaven abyss, muttering to themselves. Hong Long Glong. At this time, that wide silver blade turned back, carrying an even more terrifying aura, smashing fiercely into the collapsing heaven abyss. However, the power of natural laws of order of heaven abyss that was filled with black blood like an ocean was thousands of times greater than before. The wide silver blade hacked out again and again, but it was completely useless. 9 heavens 10 earths, in front of Imperial Pass. The endless cultivators stared blankly at the young man who descended from the sky, his hands behind his back, calm and collected, completely speechless. Right now, the heaven-splitting axe and golden disc behind Chu Bei disappeared without a trace, the Taiji diagram beneath his feet disappearing. His aura underwent a change, as if he returned to the very beginning. Collapsed? Senior Chu destroyed heaven abyss. Finally, a cry of alarm was the first to break the deathly stillness. With this beginning, the endless cultivators all reacted. In that instant, excited cries filled Imperial Pass. The foreign Anlin and Shuchuo are dead. Heaven abyss collapsed. We don't have to worry about these foreign dogs invading anymore. Haha, there's no need to fight anymore. Everything has returned to normal. I can return to the 9 heavens 10 earths. It's been a long time since I went back to take a look. The endless cultivators looked at heaven abyss that turned into a sea of natural laws, all of them hugging each other, incredibly excited. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.